All right, what's up, boys, and welcome to episode 6 of the Crack Down. Here we have Santorin from FlyQuest. He's actually currently inside of a tree right now. So yeah, that's the green background that you got for yourself. But yeah, no, I mean it's gonna be a good show. We're gonna talk majority about NALCS, but we might hit on EU depending on how much you've watched at Santorin. So yeah, we can just jump into it, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm chilling. What about yourself, Thorin?
That's how you know he's now actually a resident NA jungler, because he's just surrounded by green.
True, actually.
Nice little Easter egg for anyone who knows what I'm referring to there.
I mean, to be honest, out of all the teams, you'd think that FlyQuest would be one of the teams that wouldn't have as much green as some of the other guys, like 100 Thieves, etc. That you're really getting paid when you go to one of those teams. But
sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, Santorin's been a friend of mine. I mean, I've known him since I guess 2014 when you first came over, when you were living with my college roommate, Mike Slant at the time. You're living in his apartment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vegas. So, I mean, I've been friends with him for a while. I've got to see the entire career. I competed against him back in the day. And I think it's been a really nice redemption story for you, because obviously in the early days, you had a lot of hype when you first joined TSM. People were hyping you up because you guys won the first split. And then there was just this period where I still always felt like you were a good player. I mean, you can attest to this. I always had your back on Twitter. But the community just would not give you any opportunity. It's like, oh, this guy is passive. He doesn't know how to jungle, etc. And, in the last year or so, you've ended up having kind of this redemption arc where when you came into FlyQuest in 2019, it was like, oh shit, this guy's one of the best junglers in the league. He's actually an aggressive jungler. So maybe the 9.5 level faker mechanics are actually coming in. I know Thorin loves that.
There is one detail no one mentions about that TSM, which is actually why that story doesn't sound as cool. Like, it sounds stupid to be like, what? Someone criticized him when he won the first split, he won the IEM, came second in this next split, went to Worlds. Like, what's wrong there? What people don't mention is what I always told people, including Riot, is the flaw with LCS, which is that it's only the end result of the split that matters, and everyone forgets that. Because Santorin can confirm this. In that summer split, the last one when you were at TSM, that was the one where you guys were like the 5th seed or something crazy. Like, you actually had to do like a bonkers playoff run to make the finals even in that one. That was the one where people were picking against you every round of the playoffs. So there were certainly some problems towards the end of that TSM lineup.
No, definitely. I mean, I always attest to it myself. I didn't feel like in summer I was good enough to especially go to Worlds. I felt like in spring I was doing really, really well. In summer, I think my weaknesses kind of got exposed because, first of all, there's tanks suddenly being played. And I'm coming from Challenger Series where I'm only playing assassins and carries. So I had no idea how to play tanks. I didn't know how to be frontline, how to engage, make the decisions. And I feel like that really showed in summer. And that's why we also performed worse.
Does that play into that whole, obviously it's like a super famous narrative now, but it started with you, the idea that TSM ruins the junglers or whatever, right? The problem with that concept is, obviously they don't want to ruin the jungler, but the premise, if it ties into what you're saying here, is, if you're unsure what to do on champions you're not that comfortable playing, were you just listening to the laners too much? Did you just go off a game plan from the coach too much? What was the problem there for you?
I think we had the wrong perception of how to play as a jungler as well. It was first at Worlds where we're like, hey, you got to control the early game as a jungler. It felt like it was very much the laners saying what we should be doing and stuff like that, because I was the rookie. I didn't really have too much experience of how we should play out the game. So I think already back then, we're just playing wrong. We should teach me how to control the early game instead of kind of just having a band-aid and having the laners tell me what to do kind of a thing. So I just feel like the way we developed me was not proper, and that's probably why especially at Worlds it showed that I had no freaking clue what to do.
So how did
by the way, one thing is we should definitely address the meme first, Dominate, just to get it out of the way, right? Loco Doco said a lot of stupid, controversial, interesting, funny, occasionally insightful things. But one of the dumbest, I would make, if I made a top 10, I'm pretty famous for making lists and stuff in my content creation. If I made top 10 dumbest statements Loco Doco has ever made, number one, right out the gate, strong contender, first ballot Hall of Fame, would probably be where I literally gave him multiple chances. I said, what do you think of Santorin mechanically? And then famously, when he said something mental, I even reiterated, well, what about if we make it where, on a scale of 10, I put Faker was a 10, right? Because the logic is he's like the best player ever, and everyone knows his skill level's unbelievable. And even when I gave this motherfucker an out, which is an MO of Loco Doco, he never takes the easy way out. Like, even when I gave him a way out, because I'm contrasting you to Faker, so even if he said like 5 out of 10 compared to Faker, that's not even a diss. He famously said that if Faker's a 10 on mechanics, a fucking jungler is a 9.5. Like, what do you actually think of that, Santorin? If you fuck with it, by the way, just tell me now. Let's get on board. Come on, let's see.
I mean, if I compare myself to mid laner, obviously junglers have way worse mechanics, like just in general. So obviously compared to Figure, I'm not 9.5. But I do think if I were just to, like, put up against like all the NA junglers, like mechanics, I think I'd probably be up there, like maybe 9, maybe 8.5. But definitely against Figure, obviously not a 9.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
I mean, to be fair, this was the same Loco Doco who, obviously, I think at the time you were even in his team. I think this is when you were Goldcoin United or something. So he was probably just hyping you off that, wasn't he? I'm sure every day in that team was just like, oh, hey, Madlife, you're still really good as well. Oh, Phoenix, love you, bro. And then, like, just getting banged every time in the promotion tournament. Yeah, well done.
I mean, you'd have to say two statements for Loco Doco that would be in your top 10 of, like, dumbest things all time. Definitely that one would be up there. The other one would be when Santorin was on the team, when he was talking about how they were going to just smash Fnatic and like how like Europe was like a shit region. Yeah, I don't.
Said Fnatic would crash and burn. That was the famous quote.
Yeah,
and then TSM crashed and burned while Fnatic literally was going head to head with fake SK Telecom.
Yep.
That's also top 10. You're right. That's right up there.
So I mean, Santorin was there fucking carrying Loco's career right there, man.
In fact, here's the sick thing. There's a third one that would be in the top 10 that also relates to when Santorin was in a Loco Doco team. You must just bring the worst out of this guy, mate. Like, because the other third one everyone forgets is that on, like, I think it was Snapchat back then. It wasn't Instagram. On Snapchat, right before the finals against CLG, even though everyone else in TSM was actually reasonable and knew, like, you know, we were lucky to get this far, it's going to be a hard final. Loco famously put, like, ready for 3-0, and then it was a 3-0 just against his team. So that's another one of the all-time, like, this motherfucker doesn't just, like, put his foot in his mouth, like, 'cause that makes it sound like he carefully do it. He's, like, soccer kicking it into his fucking mouth. It's unbelievable. This guy's unreal, isn't he? That's why, though, these people don't know. That's why I did a talk show with him, because I knew this is going to be straight fire if he's just saying stupid shit like that all the time. But I'm there just to, right, that's why that's wrong. But it's entertaining. It is entertaining.
No, it's definitely good, man. I mean, I like Loco. I mean, I still obviously do a show with him. I just love the confidence to go out and say those things. Because you got to know, like, when you're in a situation where you're getting 3-0'd by the enemy team, or, like, you think this team's going to crash and burn, like, you know it couldn't have looked that good. So a lot of it just has to be some blind fucking confidence where you just want to say some controversial shit. So being able to just, like, commit to that and just take the fucking fat L in front of everyone, that's respectable to me. You know, like, I don't have the confidence to do that shit. Like, if I knew my team was shit, I wouldn't go out there and be like, yeah, we're going to fucking smash TSM 3-0. Like, I would keep quiet, you know? So I guess it's just different personalities there. But one of the things, so when you were talking about Loco, you were talking about Goldcoin United, which is a team that Santorin played in. I think it was season 7? I think it was season 7, right?
Yeah, I think it's season 7, yeah.
Yeah, so in season 7, and I think you played with Solo, correct?
Yeah.
So this is a player that we've been talking about a decent amount because there's a lot of top laners that look kind of shaky right now. Kumo, for example, Ruin, for example. We just saw CLG replace Crown in the mid lane with Pobelter. And a person that's not even on an academy team right now is Solo. So obviously he's had a bunch of, like, controversy around him. People have said that he's, like, super toxic in solo queue. I've kind of attested to that. I've just never liked playing with the guy.
From his own team last year.
I've never liked playing with the guy, right? Like, he's just the type of guy that just
be a little bit spicy.
Oh, he's just annoying. He's just a fucker, you know. He's the type of guy that is like, he'll die once, and the first thing he'll type will just be like jungle diff, like jungle difference. Like that's just who he is in solo queue. But I've always heard from everyone that's played with him that he was, you know, a good teammate, or that, like, in a team environment he's actually, like, not toxic at all. So I just kind of wanted to get your perception of it. Like, can you attest to this? Like, how was it playing with Solo?
Honestly, out of game, like, he's the nicest guy ever. Like, you would never expect it. He's just always, like, super friendly, really caring about you. When you go in game, he's kind of like the keyboard warrior kind of thing, where, like, he definitely, when I stopped playing with him, he was, like, kind of toxic. But I felt like he, like, through criticisms, like, we keep saying, like, hey, like, you're sighing a lot, like, you're doing this and that, like, it's kind of provoking the team to, like, play worse. He took it in really well. Like, I felt like he was actually becoming a really good teammate even in the game. So I actually enjoyed playing with him, and mechanically and, like, laning phase, I feel like he's probably one of the best in NA still. Even when I played on Gold Coin, like, he was literally destroying everyone in lane, and I felt like he was a really good player. So I definitely hope that he gets an opportunity somewhere, because I think in the right environment, like he won't be this toxic piece of shit that's gonna run your team, obviously.
Yeah.
Problem is, like, when I referenced there that last year he got, like, benched, I think it was at the end of the summer split by Echo Fox.
Yeah, for Lorla.
Like, that's one of those ones where this is where, like, people don't understand why I, like, turned against Forgiven, seemingly, when he did this recent drama thing. It's not that I turned against him. Like, if he'd have done that stuff in the past, I would have said, that's totally fucked. Like, what are you doing, you idiot? It's that in the past, it was almost justified if you really are the best player, and you're playing the best, and you're trying your hardest, then you've got bad teammates, and maybe some of them aren't trying, or some of them, like, aren't committed to or they've given up because you're losing. In that scenario, I don't necessarily hate it if you seem like you're toxic because you're too driven. So, like, I will say in that team was obviously a train wreck lineup, like, shouldn't really have existed. And he was by the end like the best player. So I'll give him like a mild break on that one. But the problem is, it does feel like that plays into why he isn't in LCS now. Because the problem is, other GMs, if they hear that you've had any sort of behavioural problems, that'll count against you big time, unfortunately. Stuff like that gets around.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that when I was watching Solo, there was a bunch of times where I just felt like something was off within the team, because like you'd see him get ganked like over and over again, right? And you see his like jungler feeding, like Mike Young last split. I think that he was just by far the worst jungler in the league. I don't know how it felt.
Mike Young is almost approaching that like Kiwi kid, transcendent level of
stealing. He's like, it's next level bad.
Like when you're going like 3-4 splits still stealing checks, it's like I feel like that fucking clip out of Breaking Bad. Like he can't keep getting away with this, but somehow they do. They just keep doing it.
Yeah. So I mean, Mike Young was super super bad, and I just remember like watching like player cams. Obviously, I can't hear the comms or anything, but you'd see Solo get ganked over and over again. And you just see him like sighing or like laughing on the camera. Like it's like, oh my God, I'm getting ganked again. Or like split pushing. He's like 0-6 in the game, continually split pushing, like rage split pushing it looked like. Dying when nobody's in position to take vision or do anything else on the other side of the map. Just like dying for free and permanently laughing. And for me, I'm just like, is this guy actually not toxic in a team environment? Because like when you see this shit on stage, like this is some crazy shit that we're watching. Like
that's also some BS. Like, listen, if you're gonna be toxic, just be toxic. Like I made this joke. It's gonna be on one of my shows. It was one that was a story people might know. Where one of the reasons why that H2K lineup with Forgiven in it actually broke up the first time before they got back together and went to Worlds is because one of the stupid things Forgiven did was when Jankos and Vander went out drinking one night out of like the whole split, like. Forgiven just made some sort of stupid comment on social media, like that his teammate, who was Polish by the way, is an alcoholic for going out one time. So like that's being toxic. That's legit. At least be like straight. Just actually disrespect the guy. Why are you sitting around going like, or then even pretend like, this is hilarious that I'm getting tilted. It's like, that's some like mad passive aggressive pussy shit. Like, that's like, who are you? Like my 26-year-old like upper middle class girlfriend who like, your father told you should do better, but you thought you'd stick it to him by sticking with me. But now you're realizing maybe this wasn't the right relationship for you. So you're just talking a lot and looking at your watch. Like, come on, man. At least be straight up toxic. Don't be like fake nice with toxic brimming underneath there,
Dude, and it was so easy to be toxic to Mike Young in that situation. Like, I didn't have a problem with Mike Young. Now, I'm friends with Rush. That tweet that he had, the sorry for taking your job bullshit.
Straight fire.
What was that straight fire? Like, I couldn't tell. Like, the more I looked at it, I don't think that he realized. Like, I talked to him about it, too, because there was a point where I think I called him like autistic on social media or something. I got in trouble for that. I got approached by their organization. I got approached by my organization. And even he reached out to me. But like I actually meant it in the literal sense where it was like more like I felt like he was socially unaware of the connotation of what he said. Like
I don't think he knew it was a BM.
Yeah, sorry I took your job. It's like how could you say that to like somebody else? Yeah, but he expected it to come off as like a nice thing. Like, hey, you're my friend. Like I like you. You're the best Nidalee Lee Sin. And then like the whole thing that made me cringe at that tweet was the fact that he was like talking to Rush like in like he was like leaving out words and stuff. Like he was talking to Rush as if, like he was talking to Rush in broken English like he wouldn't understand normal English. So that whole tweet made it so easy.
Is that real? Was he really like, hey Rush, me your friend?
I swear to God, if you bring the tweet up, it's like you're still best Nidalee Lee Sin, like your gameplay. Like
that's so cringe.
So that was the fucking tweet that he ended up releasing, and then he just shit the bed in LCS. The first 6 games, I think he didn't get 1 kill. He didn't get a kill or assist before 16 minutes or 15 minutes in 6 straight games in LCS. And as a jungler, it's like how you didn't like You didn't throw like a Jarvan flag and get an assist to anyone. You literally just like got 0 assists, 0 kills for the first 6 games you played. So I feel like it was so easy to hate, dude. It's so easy to be toxic. So I feel like that was Solo's perfect opportunity to just go like to unleash in that situation.
That was fair then. That was fair. That's justified now that we know the backstory of Mike Young.
Yeah, no.
That's also, by the way, why we don't even need to have a debate over like, did TSM know how to use junglers? Does Bjergsen have a problem with junglers? It was revealed when we had that show, when me and Monty had Sven on Something Inside. He literally revealed that when they were making the team with like the best of the West bot lane of Mithy and Sven in the bot lane, that they had the chance, this is mental, mate, they had the chance to get Xmithy as their jungler, and Bjergsen and the others wanted fucking Mike Young again. Like, what? What? That, even at the time, that didn't make sense, but now that's like, you look back now, like, what are you even thinking? Like, I don't even know, like, it's like Bjergsen doesn't even know what a jungler is in that side.
Yeah.
Like, holy moly, bro. It's Xmithy! By the way, he's already gone and won every title since then, Bjergsen, so great call on that one, mate. Like, you're like one of those guys who was like, Microsoft stock, I'll just take $100 for my work, actually, like at the beginning of the company or something. You're one of those guys now, Bjergsen.
So I actually pulled up the tweet. I'm just going to read it for comedy's sake. We don't have to discuss it that much, but I just think that it's such a good tweet because it starts out saying, "Love you, Rush. Sorry I took your job, but I will stay subscribed on Twitch. You, my favorite jungler, learned about your Nidalee sin when I was kid. Super nice guy. I hope he gets good opportunity." So it's like the dynamic. Like I think the last part is the thing I didn't touch on. Was
That's
like,
even more mental. Like, what do you mean when you were a kid? Like, right, you know, Rush, like, his career only started like 3 years before that or something. Like, what? How old's Mike Young? Like, 12 years old? So what's he talking about? It's not like he's 20. He's making it sound like he's just joined the NFL and that guy's like a 20-year veteran or something. Like, yeah, I used to love you when I was a kid. It's like, that was 3 years ago. What are you talking about?
I mean, it's just such a weird dynamic because he broken English talks to Rush, and then there's just randomly like a call out to everyone else at the end where it's like, by the way, I hope he gets a great opportunity. It's like, what is this fucking tweet, man? That was the banger. That was the banger of last season, man. I've went off on it multiple times, but I had to read it again just so we get to hear the broken English, the change of tone, and the like blatant disrespect for the "sorry I took your job." Definitely a banger of a tweet. But yeah, I mean to I guess keep on going into the solo angle, like. One thing that I've noticed is there's a lot of imports this year that aren't living up to like expectations. I feel like NA has started importing like a lower level of player than before.
Yeah, called Oceanic players.
Yeah, okay, Oceanic players, but that's the thing is like
real. It's been real.
Back when people used to import, like the imports used to be the best players on your team always.
We used to recruit, literally, LCS used to recruit among the best mid laners in Europe, the region that creates mid laners. Now you're recruiting fucking Oceanic players.
Yeah.
Now you just pray and like Papa Smithy's surrounded by all the idols of Mother Mary and fucking Jesus and everything. His fingers crossed. He's fucking throwing a penny into a well. He's fucking doing everything. He's like trying to not step on the cracks on the pavement. Like, please, Rioma, work out. It's like, it's not going to work out. Why would it? If he's smurfing on Oceanic region, that means he's probably a fucking diamond player in LCS. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no. So my whole point when we were talking about solo is like, it seems like there's a bunch of players that should be LCS capable. Demonte, Solo, even Lorlo out take over Kumo.
The thing is, like, bearing in mind, this is why actually I thought that whole off-season discussion was a bit fake, where like fans were trying to pretend because Demonte didn't get picked up. Like, but we would all love to support a team of NA players. Would you, fuck? If that team was last place, you'd hate on them. Like when Golden Guardians had that mainly NA lineup. So here's the thing: if that was true, if we really did live in a world where you could market a team just from being NA, you could actually make a legit, not bad team like Solo, Demonte, or Paul Belter. There's a whole bunch of junglers actually wouldn't be appalling to give a chance to. Obviously, supporting AD players out there. Like, you could actually make a pretty solid team of just NA players.
Yeah, but I mean,
Ignis has Academy is kind of like that right now, right?
It's actually not a bad team. I even said when they made that team, no joke, I think that's better than some of the LCS teams.
Oh, it's better than CLG for sure.
Obviously, I didn't know about CLG at the time. I would have thought their roster was one of the decent ones, but definitely way better than them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my point is like, why do you guys think that we're getting like all these like low level imports and players like Solo that look promising in LCS? I mean, Demonte was a second like full year. I mean, I know he came in at the end of Echo Fox, but it was kind of like he was thrown in.
Come on.
Yeah, so like his rookie year was essentially last year. Goes to Worlds, like looks like he's promised. Why do you believe? I mean, as a player that like NA teams have started importing like such low level talents compared to like what we have here? Because I don't know like how it seems to you, but it seems like from my perspective, these players are just worse than the NA players we have already.
Honestly, I don't really know. I feel like when I look at the NA players like Demonte and Solo, I mean, for sure, Solo, like, instantly just given an opportunity because I'm pretty sure after Mike, he played with Panda too, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how is he gonna lane? Like, you're literally just like, you're not really playing with a jungler, and top lane is like all about playing with your jungler. You can basically have zero impact as a top laner without a jungler. Like, there's literally no way you can play the game. And I feel really bad for him in that regard because I feel like he's like, when I play with him, I feel like he was really, really good. Sure, like he didn't communicate everything he had to, but I feel like he'd always win lane, he'd always snowball, he'd always do TP plays, that kind of stuff. And not giving him like a second opportunity, at least in the academy. Like, for example, like let's say he like got onto one of the teams that have like a pretty bad import top laner. Like, I'm sure he'd take his spot. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he'd take his spot like immediately because he's just honestly like a really good player. And seeing people like the Monsignor and even like Poe Builder didn't really have a job either. It's kind of ridiculous to me because like I play with Poe Builder. I honestly feel like it was really easy playing jungler with him. Like, he communicates a lot. He's really good about his lane matchups. He's really good at roaming and like always helping out your team. So like I feel like there's a lot of junglers that would be fucking blessed to have him as a mid laner. And just seeing him not get picked up and see someone like Ryoma, one of the other guys, like take basically his job.
You can just say it. Fuck it,
Ica too.
Yeah,
but it's just like it was really ridiculous to me because it just makes zero sense from any like standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to make your team better. So it's like, do you really care about importing that much? And I mean, I can kind of understand when there's an import with a brand, you know, like you get Soaz as your top laner. I don't think Soaz is like insane. I don't think he's bad either. I think he's like serviceable right now. I did my tier list recently of top laners. I had him at about 7th. But at least it's like a former, you know, world finalist. Like 2 years ago, this guy was in the world finals. So you got to put like some respect on his name.
That's a good gamble as well. Maybe he has a resurgence, maybe playing NAZ. You never know. It could work out on that one.
Yeah, sure. But there's like a bunch of players that I see in LCS right now, like FBI, Ica, Ryoma, Ruin, like even Crown this split, like where it's just like what is the point of having these players?
I mean, I think the most ridiculous one to me was the whole Keith situation. Because normally, like, I'm all for people switching roles, but like from watching the video, it looked like he wasn't really considering swapping roles. They're just like, "Hey, how do you feel about support? Like, do you want to play support in LCS?"
Oh, they threw him under the bus.
Yeah, but to me, it's just like if he was the one approaching Golden Gardens, he's like, "Hey, like, I really want to switch. I feel like I'm gonna be really good at this role. Like, can you give me a shot?" I'd be all for it, but it really sounded like it's like, "Hey, do you want to play LCS? Well, you gotta switch to support." And I just feel like that is just like ridiculous to me.
And what is the guy supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Like your options are playing in LCS and like getting to at least, you know, compete at the highest level, or play in academy for the 3rd year in the row. Like who's going to take that option? It's like, yeah, I mean, they're setting him up for failure. It's like, okay, go in there. That's why when I flame Keith, I'm flaming Keith for his gameplay, but I'm mainly flaming Golden Guardians for putting him in the situation where he has to go on stage and in, because from his perspective, like, yeah, he's trying his fucking best. I'm sure if I tried to role swap to support and played LCS right now, I would look bad as fuck too. Like, that's just the nature of doing something like this. So, I mean, honestly, he's done better than expected. Like, at least he's had some good Thresh games. You know, his Tom Kench leaves a lot to be desired. But it's so, like, on his hook champs, he at least can, like, make some plays in lane. Like, he could win a lane. So, you know, I'm not completely against the whole, like, level of play from Keith. I'm just against the experiment in general. It just seems like it's destined for failure.
For sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, a couple things that I definitely wanted to bring up, I guess, relating to your team is, I mean, obviously FlyQuest has had a big resurgence. Last year in spring, you guys were really good. I mean, you guys finished 4th in the season, and, you know, people were kind of expecting the same type of thing. Summer, it's like a big decline. You guys had support issues, etc. And then now you're having this resurgence with Power of Evil and Ignar. So, personally, like, I would just want to hear your perspective on how it is to play with Power of Evil and Ignar. Like, they've obviously have synergy from the Misfits days, or like it appears that they still like understand how to play the game together, and they seem to be good friends. So how has that really benefited your team?
I think it benefits us a lot, especially just the way Power of Evil plays. He's really good at playing side lane. He's really good at like dragging people to his lanes. Like, if I'm on the wrong side, I might be, hey, what the fuck are you doing there? Like, come over here. Like, you got to be on my side. Like, we're going to do this, and that. Like, he's really good at understanding how he wants to snowball his lead and how he wants to play the game. Which is something I feel like we didn't really have last year. It kind of felt like, I mean, you watched our games, like especially in summer, we're just grouping mid 5-man, like, okay, hopefully we're getting engaged. Now it's more like we'll drag them to side lanes, like we'll play the game how it's supposed to be played, or like at least like to a better level. So it's a lot easier for me to play the game too. Like beforehand, I would literally just sit mid the entire game and throw ults out. It really sucks, you know. Like now I can play side lane, we can play vision control, we can like make plays. But a lot of teams in NA, like it's literally just 5v5 mid, and there's almost like no opportunities to make a play unless the enemy team fucks up, and that's why now we're like actually actively making them fuck up by playing side lane. So the addition of Power Evil makes, for me, my life so much easier. And then Igna is really, really good at engaging and like making plays and grouping up with jungle, which again also makes my life way, way easier. I still feel like Tristan, like Power Evil and Igna, they have definitely the synergy from before, because I see them making a lot of plays, like even just those two by themselves, and they're always communicating to each other, they're definitely on the same page. And I definitely feel like the reason why we're a lot stronger this year compared to last year is because of those two additions.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it just gave you guys some firepower. Like before the Pobelter Wild Turtle lineup, like I feel like they're both not bad players. I feel like they're both serviceable, but you didn't have like the fucking carry on your team. Where Power Evil can actually carry a fucking game. Like you give him like a good Orianna game, he's gonna do work. He's gonna output damage at a team fight. He's gonna win his lane by enough. So like that just gave like a different dimension where it's like, oh, now FlyQuest can actually win games just based off like having a stronger mid laner. Like if you get into late game, it felt like it was fucking lost for you guys every other time. Like last season, every time it got to late game, it just felt like it was so lost. But now you guys actually have a strength there. And I feel like Ignar has, from watching it, it just seems like he has a really good mind for like engaging. Like he just understands like how to pick fights, and he seems really confident in his mechanics, where before, I mean, you guys just played 4v5. That's how it felt like with JJ. I mean, I like JJ, but I don't know. It felt like he was just like Keith McBrief 2.0. Just walking around the map and dying, not really able to find engages. I mean, it just seems like now that there's more of an identity. Do you think that those are like the main two things? Like just those two players just being better? Do you guys just have stronger players? That's why you're suddenly second? Or is there like something else that's gone on within the team to like really propel you guys towards the top of the standings?
I mean, for me,
you change coaching stuff to be fair. You can also add that in as well, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I definitely think like having Curry as main coach and David as secondary coach is, it's really, really nice, because I mean, David came from EU, so he has a lot of like the EU perspective of things. And I've always kind of like the EU way more than the NA way, especially like when it comes to criticism.
And didn't he have Ignar on his team? Wasn't he on Schalke?
Exactly.
So
There we go. Yeah. So they came like kind of there. Like it felt really good because, I mean, they both speak Korean too, so they can kind of like tell each other like how it's done and stuff like that. And to me, it just, I really feel like coaching staff has stepped up a lot this year. Because the way we have it is more like European, where you can kind of like be a little toxic to each other, like say like this is how it is, like I feel like you're really bad at this, so we have to improve this. Whereas a lot of the teams I've been on, especially in the NA, it's like you can't really be like confrontive about stuff. Like you have to like kind of take the other pros, like I think we can kind of get better at this, like I think we can help you a little bit in this direction, you know, like not really like giving it straight to them. So like I feel like it's a lot easier to improve now. As individuals, like we're really straightforward to each other, and it just makes it like for a better team environment.
By the way, on that topic you were talking about earlier there, Dom, like Power of Evil, I said this on Twitter, but I think it's such a legit point. He has to be one of the most underrated European mid laners, probably ever, because think about all the great European mid laners. Like we were commenting on that past episode about how like Nuke probably gets overrated because he's actually never won, but yeah, everyone puts him at that status as though he has. It's the opposite. Power of Evil has like a comparable record to fucking Nuke, and he never gets any of the credit. Like every single year, people try to tell me this guy's like washed up, he's not that good. He literally goes to bad teams over and over again who are like, you know, bottom of LCS or EU LCS and just takes them to like contender status over and over. Almost every team he's been on, he's done that with. Yep. The shitty Unicorns love that everyone laughed at, said was garbage. He was the best player in that team. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, Hillosang was there as well, so there was still some talent. Obviously, then he was on the Misfits team that went to Worlds. Now he was on the CLG team last year, which no one ever thought that lineup would compete, and they were third place by the end of the split. And now with this FlyQuest team, which everyone had written off after last summer, like we were talking about. So, like the problem with the problem Power Evil has is basically the same problem.
It's Froggen. It's Froggen 2.0. I was going to say the same thing.
People just look at what they aren't and judge them by that. And if you do that, what you will miss is what they are, and what they are good at, they're amazing at. Like they have certain strengths, some of them very unique strengths. Like in the case of Power of Evil, they both have the same quality where they'll pick champions that aren't even in the meta, but they're just so absurdly good at that champion, or knowing the specific matchups that no one else knows. They can make it work. Well, what's mad about that is, listen, it certainly can hurt you if you can't play the most meta champion, but it also can be a benefit when the opponent either has to waste a ban on some shit that's not even in the meta, or just has to not even know what matchup he's going to play. Like that can be tough.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Power of Evil is such a weird player to me, right? Because like back in the day, Like, for example, when he played on the Unicorns of Love team that you referenced with Hylissang and Chachi, he was just pulling out things that people thought weren't even, like, borderline viable. Like, he pretty much made AP Kog'Maw meta. Like, where everyone just thought this was, like, an AD-only champion. And, like, AP Kog'Maw was considered relatively troll, but he was just able to play, like, these long-range poke champions that no one else would even consider. Like, his Ziggs, like, I remember he was pulling out, like, a Ziggs game. I don't know if he still ever, like, is going to pull it out in LCS, but... You know, Ziggs is actually getting some traction here, but I feel like those types of champions are just good for him. I mean, the criticism that I've had for him, which you alluded to, which is obviously like his inability to like pick up meta champions and like sure, there's times where you don't need to play them, like Akali, Sylas, like Kiana, Aurelia. Like he played some of these last year, but they never seemed like good. It never feels like it's something that's super comfortable for him. Like it doesn't feel like he wants to play that style. So I'm always just worried about when the meta shifts. Like, this is a great time to be a control mage player, right? Like, the blind picks are Syndra, Orianna, like, LeBlanc is, like, the only one that kind of has to go in. Zoe, like, all these blind pickable mid laners are right up his alley. I'm just worried about, like, the meta change. Like, when they inevitably buff Akali to just make it one of the best champions in the game again, how is FlyQuest going to fare? Because I don't think he played one Akali game last season.
Honestly, from just, like, swimming with him for, like, a month or so, I feel like sure, like he'd prefer to play control mages, but I do feel like he definitely wants to play like the meta champions. Like for example, we already played 2 Rumble games mid, and I feel like he was like actually playing it really well.
Yeah, he was.
The main thing for me with him is just like, I honestly like when you think of control mages, like normally you think, okay, they're gonna hug mid turret and they're just gonna farm and like scale. When he plays control mage, goddamn, that guy's split pushing. Like we had a game in scrims where he's playing like Zoe, and he's literally fucking taking inhib turrets and stuff, like side laning, because he's just like really, really good at understanding how his champions work. So I was somewhat scared, like when we picked him up, that maybe he's gonna hug his turret, like he's gonna be farming, scaling for late game. But like after playing with him, like I don't mind putting him in every single game because he just knows how to carry as a player. So I don't really have that kind of issue.
I mean, one of those Rumble games was a lot easier because Wiggly just had the dirtiest int of all time into you mid lane with Jarvan. Like that was just so insane. Like, what did you think when that happened in game? Like, you must have just thought the game was completely over because you're just 2 kill Rek'Sai versus Jarvan at that point.
Yeah, I was like, maybe Wiggly really misses him or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, that was the hardest trade, man.
If you're a jungler and you have no solo laners whatsoever, like you've just got to do something up, but you got to make something up, haven't you? Like you either have to int or just carry the whole game, which is the same thing basically, unless it goes right. So, no, I would also say that's the key thing, like what you were touching on there. Is like what I like about Power of Evil. It's very similar to Frogger in that sense. Is they know their own game better than anyone else. So, like you can trust whatever they say they want to play, however they're going to play. You know they'll do their job. So it doesn't mean they'll be the best mid laner. That's a totally different category. But there's a lot of, in theory, potentially even better players who don't always know their own game. That's why you see them do bizarre ints or pick a champion that doesn't even make sense for them, or only pick a champion because it's meta, even if it doesn't fit their strengths. I'd rather have a guy who just tells me, listen, pick me this. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm taken care of. And actually, sometimes, like I said, when it's not a power pick, that can actually have like counterintuitive draft advantages, actually. Like, for example, no one's ever going to ban half that shit, are they? You can just play it whenever you want. You can know going into the game what you're going to get. Whereas the guy who thinks he's coming in now to play Azir this week, maybe that's banned. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Power Evil's a weird player. I guess we can kind of talk about it too. I mean, I've always wanted to get your point. I mean, when you're on a show with Thorin, you have to always bring up Froggen, right? Like you can't let this guy get a pass. So I just want to know what is your perception of Froggen so far this split? I still think he's like decent. I think I have him at like 5 or 6 mid laners in the league, but I feel like he probably hasn't lived up to the expectations that you had for him in this Dignitas team.
Me?
So far. Yeah. Well, both of you guys can chime in on it, but sure, I would love to hear your opinion first.
I mean, all I would say is this is like, if you don't think he's that good and he's the 7th best mid laner you had him as,
No, 5th or 6th.
The 5th best mid laner, right? Who's better than him?
Power of Evil.
If you say Bjergsen, well, I'm going to end another show right now.
Oh, you don't think...
You're going to say... You're going to have Bjergsen like top 2, I guarantee.
I'm going to have... I have Bjergsen, Jensen, Power of Evil, and...
Wait a minute. Bjergsen's number 1.
No. No order.
Just the top 5, right?
No, Niski is by far number 1.
Right.
In my mind. And then I think Power of Evil is probably like anywhere from 2
up there.
Yeah, I'd say like I guess you have to say Power of Evil second, and then I think Jensen and Bjergsen are just like 3, 4. They both like haven't looked great, But I think they both looked better than Froggen.
This is the problem right now. You've just nailed it right there. So when my player, we'll say Froggen in this case, is on a losing team, right? I'm never allowed to say, look, he's good on a losing team, because you'll go, why is his team losing then? Meanwhile, Jensen can just lose every fucking game, but you're like, but of the players that were losing the game, he looked quite decent though, didn't he? It wasn't all his fault. Bjergsen can have fucking leads every game, playing every champion he wants, throw every lead against the shittest teams in the world, fucking LCS teams, and at the end you still have a goal to be like, good player though, good player. Homie, give Froggen a 4-0 lead on champ. Let's see what he does with that. You think he's going to throw that game? I don't know about that. So all I'll say is this, same shit I used to say about Golden Guardians. Who do you think's got them into like 4th place in the league? What, is that just all the fucking bot lane now? You just did that in love with a tired ass Afromu and Johnson, who's still in his first split ever. Like, just because they're not bad doesn't make them the best.
So I think that Huni is like a good player to have sometimes. Like, he's somebody who's going to get you some wins, right? There's going to be some wins where he's just going to take over the game.
He's going to hard carry some games, for sure.
So like, he's been like, I think the biggest reason why Dignitas wins or loses in Dignitas games. Like, it seems like it's like, okay, Huni into the game or he carried the game. That's just how I feel when I watch him.
Okay.
I think Johnson's been stable. I think Johnson's been better than expected. Every pro player I talk to respects him. I don't know what your opinion is on him, Santorin, but every pro player normally just says that they think he's pretty good, especially for like the context of, oh shit, NA 80 carries coming in. Like, if you made a tier list right now of pro players based on how they've played so far this split, there's no world where you can say the Double has played better than Johnson this split. Like, that is just like absurd, right? So I think that he's stable. I just think that Froggen is the type of player where he doesn't have like, I feel like he's really good on blue side because you can blind pick like all of his champions, right? Like, you can just blind pick Ori every game and he's always going to be okay. I feel like his counter picks have not been working this split as well as you'd expect. Like, when he played the Vel'Koz game into Bjergsen Syndra, for all intents and purposes, I feel like he got clapped in that game by Bjergsen.
That was a terrible draft, though, that particular game. Like, that was an all-world bad draft. Like, in fact, that's actually one of my biggest problems judging Dignitas.
Triple AP top side.
I don't think they actually draft very well. Like, of all the teams that are in the top 4 or 5, they have the most coin flip drafts I've ever seen, where some of them are just terrible. Like, the difference is, some of those other teams, like FlyQuest seems pretty decent. Actually, seems like they get the comps they want out, like they know what they want to do with it. Whereas, like, that game there was a good example of where, in isolation, I mean, anyone who saw last year knows that Froggen's a good Vel'Koz player. Yeah. But how does Vel'Koz make any sense in that comp there? Like, what even is that comp? Like,
triple AP topside. Triple AP top. Well, I mean, they just got mind fucked by TSM in that draft. Like, they thought that they were counter picking the set top with Kennen. They're like, oh shit, like enemy team first pick set top, and then they just played set jungle in that game, and then it's like, oh shit, now we have Aurelia versus Kennen. So they were willing to like sacrifice their draft and be like, oh fuck, we'll have triple AP topside, whatever. We're gonna win lanes hard enough for it to not matter, and then it just ended up being like, oh shit, well now we have 2 bad lane matchups and we have triple AP topside. So they did get fucked in the draft, but I just wasn't happy with it. Anyway.
But I feel like if I was Dig, like, you'd expect that all Froggen's counter picks are probably gonna be mages, like most likely. So why'd you pick Elise? Like, you already have Kennen, like. Where's the Elise coming in? Like,
they have an obsession with Elise. Like, they do that all the time.
Also, for the love of God, like, I've seen
Grig is bad. Grig is bad. I'll give you that.
Grig playing
I'll give you it.
Give him his Gragas the second it's available.
Give him Jarvan.
First picking fucking Gragas and Jarvan if I was with Grig on my team. Because here's the thing. Put him on those champs. He's a competent player. He'll do his job.
Yeah.
But he can also, when you put him on the wrong champ and the wrong comp, look really bad. Like... Like, you see both ends of it. Like, you see on the one hand why TSM thought there was potential, and then you see why it didn't work out. So it's like, you've got to... This is one of the reasons why I actually do think... You know, I don't know if you ever heard this classic quote. I think it's a real quote, but it's the one that I remember LS said as his explanation as to why NA doesn't do that well internationally. He said that players would rather be ruined by praise than, like, I can't remember what the concept was, like, you know, changed by criticism or something like that, you know, like, they don't want to, like, have the harsh truth. If you go around telling like, if you think, right, because I've noticed this is like an NA mentality, it's almost like some sort of, like, cult where they all think that you have to be positive at all times. And you must be telling your teammate how he's doing a good job at all times. It's like that thing in American sports where when I was a boy, right, and I watched the NBA, if you made the free throw, they give you the high five. If you make a basket, they give you a high five. Now they give each other high fives, everything, even when they miss the free throw. Like, this has gone mad, guys. Like, why are you congratulating a guy for failing to do his job? So people have done that in teams. Like, people literally want to pretend that it's toxic to even pretend within a team. Like, this player isn't our best player, so we have to actually, make him have certain circumstances and give him a chance to succeed. This guy's our best player. He can do whatever he wants. Like, they think that's toxic. It's not. That's just being responsible. Like, when you have players that have difficulties, you got to make up for that difficulty. So that means the first thing you got to do is identify it and be honest. Like, I would just be straight up with a guy like that. Like, they obviously didn't put this stand-up together with the most money in the world. I know they bought Hooney, but, like Greg was one of the players they picked up towards the end from what I remember. I'm sure they just picked whoever was available. So they know they're not going in with the best jungler in the world. So just be realistic with it,
Well, I mean, that draft, Santorin was talking about it, but that one draft that they had, I forget which team it was against, but they first picked Elise. It was into Golden Guardians. They first picked Elise into Golden Guardians and gave Ornn Aphelios. I literally just lost my mind when I saw that draft. Like, what did you think about that draft, Santorin? What is this priority on Elise that we have?
I mean, I think that's probably the most disgusting draft I've seen this split. Like, because basically, like, most teams when they draft, if you have Ornn and Aphelios, you just think you won the game, So, like, picking Elise as your first pick, which, by the way, isn't really a priority pick, like, it's mind-blowing.
I mean,
I've got a problem with that. I want to get your take on it, actually, Santorin, because the other thing is as well, I actually have the most sympathy in the whole game for junglers over the last few years. It used to be top laners when they had to play that shit tank meta for years, and then their version of a carry was just a bruiser, Like, I used to have a lot of faith for that, like, sympathy for them, but now they've had years where they've had carries and they've had all the flexes were made, so it's actually pretty cool to be a top laner now. The problem with jungle is, first of all, they reinvent the game every year, so all those cool things you learned about pathing no longer even apply. And then secondly, because the champ switches in the meta switches are so brutal, like it'll go from like pure hard carry to like tank does nothing but tank in the game. Like, because the switch is so extreme, I actually think that like that's the rollout of all the roles where you've got to do what I was saying before, be like really realistic about who your jungler is. Because the idea of this like meta thinking of like just pick the strong champions, like even if in draft you think Elise is the best champion, maybe you want to put pressure on in the early game. If your jungler isn't that good at it, you're just going to fuck the whole game. Because the other reason I have sympathy for junglers is, like when we had that episode where you were saying, Dominate, like, I believe perks could change to any role. And I told you the one role I will not believe is jungle. Because every carry player probably thinks jungle's brilliant because they're like, this stupid jungler. It's like, mate, until you've been trapped on that LCS stage 10 minutes into a game where you've been 4-quadranted, your laners are all fucking losing the lanes, and there's no way you can go on the map. Like, that's a nightmare. Like, that's like some Saw movie level shit where you just go, what? And it's like, enjoy getting out of this game, fucker. Like that's what it's like to be that. That's the worst scenario ever. So I feel like with junglers, you've got to be super realistic. You don't ever want to put that guy on it. Because even worse, if you put him on what's a strong meta pick, but it's not his strength, he's going to look even worse. And then in context, he's going to get flamed 10 times harder.
True.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was a jungler and one of the weaker one with good laners, I'd just be like, hey, I'm going to first pick my jungler every single game, like probably just Javan.
Exactly.
Like, and then I'll just be like, okay, if I'm winning lanes, I'm going to get Scuttles, I'm going to get Dragons, Heralds. If I'm losing lanes, I mean, shit, we're going to lose anyway. But one game that comes to my mind is like the Xmilly game versus Greg, actually, where like Greg was like permanent. I was thinking about pathing, like, where the hell do you start? You're free losing lanes. John's going to red do blue all red no matter what. So like, I feel like that draft was already like doomed from the get-go.
You don't think it's better to start blue there?
It's definitely better to start blue because at least you'll get free camps or whatever. But I feel like no matter what, like you're gonna get invaded one side or another, which already kind of blows as a jungler. I mean, that's where I'm like thinking like, Xmilly, maybe you should have picked Javan there, because like to me it's like you want to like pick junglers where it fits your lane compositions, like who gets priority, who gets not, and stuff like that. So you don't want to pick a champ that you can get invaded on early if you have losing lanes, and the other way around. So if you have a weak jungler, obviously you should get stronger laners and just like pick Javan every single game, because that's probably how you're gonna win games.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I felt like that game specifically, the Immortals versus Dignitas game that you're referencing, I felt like that game specifically was just like really troll pathing from Xmilly, because like even when he got like, I don't know if you remember the golem situation, so he loses his flash, right, and he has WE on Sejuani, and he gets blast planted, like the vision plant goes to his golems, he knows they're fucking coming for his ass, and he just tries to finish the golems in their face and just dies for it like first blood. Like, I don't know, I just felt like that was just such like a weird game from Xmilly. Like normally you don't see him make mistakes like that.
It's definitely a bad game from him. In my mind, I assume he thought he was going to hit level 3 from the big
so he could get his Q.
Yeah. But regardless, like, yeah, his path was definitely a troll, but realistically, I feel like it would be a really hard game for them to play anyway, because you have like 2 or 3 losing lanes plus losing jungle matchup. Like I think that's already like a shit draft.
Yeah.
By the way, let's get your take on this, because one of the players, like Dom is a critic of him in terms of Smithy, that is really hard to evaluate, is like when he's in teams where he was winning. Like the problem with the Team Liquid scenarios, I always say this to all junglers, is like, don't get too cocky just because you've got all 3 best players as your laners. Like, yeah, you should be the best fucking jungler, mate. Like logically, you have the dream scenario. So people either flame him, like some people even flamed him in Team Liquid last year, because obviously like some of their problems probably did come from him. That's why they were more of a late game team, you know. Like, where do you evaluate Smithy? Because it's easy to flame him now. Like Immortals is kind of like, I think at best they should be a mid-table team once it all spreads out, you know.
I don't even think they're going to make playoffs.
They're probably going to be slightly below playoffs. Yeah, they're definitely a flawed lineup. So what do you make of him as an overall jungler? Because obviously you've been on the outside, you've been in bad teams when he was in good teams. How do you evaluate him now?
I mean, honestly, when you talked about TSM picking up Xmilly, like could have, I feel like it was literally the best decision if they picked Xmilly up, because to me, Xmilly is really, really good if he has winning lanes. Like, you know exactly how to play the game. Exactly.
Wait, who's not good when they have winning lanes though?
No, to me, it's like he's really good communication, like really good pathing. I don't think he's ever gonna like mechanically outplay any other jungler. Like, I'd never see him as being like, okay, I'm just gonna take over the game. I'm gonna play these carries. I'm gonna carry the game. But he knows like how to set up his team when they're playing the carries. So sure, like as any jungler, like you could probably do that. But I think Xmilly is really good at that, and that's why I feel like when he was on TL, he was definitely like a part of why they're winning, because he knew like, okay, my ball lane is so goddamn good. I'm just gonna play bot every single game. I'm gonna fuck myself by like level 2 ganking bot just so they burn some flashes, and then they're gonna carry me, right? It's like that playstyle is literally what fits Xmilly. And the second I saw he moved to a team like IMT, I knew he's going to look terrible, and he's probably not going to do that well, and they're probably not even going to make playoffs, because I just don't see him being the carry on the team.
Yeah, you're not going to fucking see the Smithy pop off on Lee Sin and LCS. Like, you'll just never see that in your life. So, I mean, I completely agree with that point on Smithy. I just, personally, like, I feel like because he played with winning lanes for so long, I feel like he was, like, slightly overrated. Like, people were like, oh, he's the best jungler. Best jungler by far in the league. It's like no one's even close. You couldn't even make an argument. You're like, even if you tried to like throw, it's like, hey, I think in the split that spring split last year where Acadian had like a pretty fucking good split, like for all intents and purposes, if anyone tried to say Acadian was better than Smithy, you'd just get like shit on immediately. So this like players like that, I just don't. I know their value. I understand that they have value in a good team, but I don't know if that really makes you like the best jungler in the league, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now if you were to make a jungle tier list, could you even make it? Like, because right now, like, you have a lot of big names, and I feel like it's very hard to rate them, because I have always been like where I think like jungle just depends on how good your team is. Like, it's very hard to look good, especially I mean, goddamn, I played like Trundle the last 2 out of 3 games. If I was on a different team, I'd play the exact same way. I'd lose every single game, right? Like the only thing you do is Trundle the team fight, click on the Sejuani and release your key, like get your hands away from the keyboard, and then hope your team carries you. Yeah. And so like right now, like I'm thinking of junglers, like there's definitely junglers I thought would do better, but I also feel like they're not doing better because of the teammates they have. So right now, if I had to do a tier list, it'd actually be really hard.
Well, I mean, I guess the
jungler. Go on.
I mean, I guess the jungler that I would say that would kind of counter that point would be Closer, because I feel like Closer has been on a relatively shit team. Like I think Golden Guardians is a bad team.
That's basically the point I would make, is whenever I try to evaluate players individually, I do kind of use what you were saying before. Like, but if you have all the good, basically, if you let's take the lanes out there. If we're talking about any player, if you just have really good teammates, yeah, you might look better. The problem with that is that does actually mean you're not as good a player, in my opinion. Like the true best player individually would also still be good on a bad team, in my opinion. So as a result, if you're only good because you're on a top team, that might mean you're a great complementary piece. Like Smithy, I think would be the perfect example of this. You put him with the best players in NA, he might actually at that point in time have been the best jungler for them. Like he was doing a great job. He fit their style so much. Like he always looked like he knew where he needed to be. They didn't have to worry about that. He was taking over it all. But Close is a great example now. I would say last summer, Meteos in Optic, like that lineup was garbage. He had Crown and that was about it. And he was still an absolute stud. Same thing, obviously, with like other. Like I'll give you an example. To not even be BM, when Santorin here was talking about when he was in TSM, right? TSM was a better team than Tip was, but I'll take Rush over Santorin back then. Rush was a monster. That guy could carry like players that only spoke fucking Chinese in a team that speaks English. Like,
I think he was overrated. I think he was overrated.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he was overrated from playing against him. Like, I don't know. Everyone would always say Rush is the best jungler in the league, right? Like that was the time where it was like Rush and then me. And every single time I played against Rush, I always beat him. And it just felt like he was...
Your laners were way better than his.
No, I would beat him individually though. Like I would
Okay.
I would actually outperform him in the games, and it just felt like he was just a flashy player, and people just like the flashy players more than like it's like if when Xmithy is actually playing really well. So there's splits like, for example, where I did feel like he was just the best jungler in the league. So a split that I'd reference would be 2018 spring. When he was playing, so Meteos was playing on 100 Thieves at that point. They played finals against 100 Thieves. I thought that he was actually the best jungler in the league. I thought he was playing well, like he was controlling dragons. He was early ganking, like he had pressure, and he was like a control jungler, but he didn't look flashy. So people that have sick mechanics are just always going to get more praise from the community. That's just that's kind of how I viewed Rush as like, oh, like if he was playing in that same like era as Xmithy there in 2018 spring, people would have just been hyping him up so much. It's like, oh, well, Xmithy just has better lanes, whatever. But it's like you can be a smart control jungler and still be outperforming somebody with good mechanics if you just have better map movement. So to me, Rush was just like always slightly overrated because of that fact. And I guess Santorin kind of agrees. Do you have anything
I mean, definitely. To me, it's like he was really bad at pathing and stuff like that. So like the way I see him was like he was mechanically really, really talented. He was really good at finding gank opportunities. He's really good at making flashy plays. But every time I played him, I never felt like it was kind of predictable where he'd be most of the time, and I'd always be really upset about my laners if they got like gang when you know where he is and stuff like that. Because to me, he'd always go for early ganks. Like so, you just put some walls down, like you'll probably see him. And I feel like he was very tunneled on like making the really high mechanical plays. Whereas like in some situations, it'd be better to just like get vision on bot side instead of like looking for the gang top and stuff like that. Like I feel like there's small things than just like looking great as a jungler. Because to me, like, if I just want to look great, I'd always just like not play for vision control. I'd always just look for make plays.
Wait a minute. Now you've veered too far the other way, because think about it, right? You don't have identical teammates. So let's say he was in that tip team and now he's setting up vision for a lane that does nothing, and he helps his top laner with the counter gank, but that just stops that. Like in this scenario, the reason why I gave that example is because I actually think that tip team was terrible. Like in that team, he had to play it like a solo queue game. Like, right, have I got any winning lanes? It's just snowball the fuck out of this lane, or even just get all the kills on myself. Like you have to just go balls
lanes again. It was like Impact.
It was Impact, Zhao, and then Apollo and Adrian was their ball in.
And remember, this is when Impact barely speaks any English, and then Zhao speaks Chinese. Like, those are your solo laners, homie. Like, what vision and quality?
I think that whole angle is super overplayed, right? Because like I played on a team where it was like, oh, Piglet doesn't speak any English, Phoenix doesn't speak any English. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't really think. I think if you're good enough, then you're fine.
You're just listing an AD carry there, mate. How can a jungler be saying it's fine to have two solo laners that don't speak the same language as you? Although I guess technically he is Korean himself, so he could speak the same as Impact. That's not entirely fair, I guess.
I mean, obviously, we shouldn't downplay like Rush. He did a lot on that team, and he was looking really good. I'm just saying, from playing him as a jungler, it didn't feel like he was like just this guy that just knew exactly what to do at every single point in the game. Like, there's definitely times where you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And like, for example, in some of the games he played against us, you literally just walk into my jungle level 2 and just die. You know, like he had some really high risk plays, and I can kind of understand why.
It's high tempo jungling, nice.
He had some.
It kind of was, yeah. That was his whole game, was just go as fast as he could, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But like when you look back at it, it makes sense why he had those high risk plays, because he knew his team was not going to win normally. So I understand why he would like go for all these risky moves. I'm just saying, like, I couldn't really evaluate him as a jungler because I don't know how it would be on a good team. Because to me, he seemed like a very like high risk, high reward kind of player.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, that's why jungle is like the hardest role to also evaluate. Is like it almost seems like a ridiculous caricature, but there really is like a mad divide between like super flashy mechanics junglers and then the really smart junglers. There's so little overlap. That's why for me, like I've always thought Meteos was the best NA jungler in most seasons he's played. Because here's the thing, he always knows where he needs to be on the map. But it's not even that he has sick mechanics. It never looks like he needs them. It just gets it done every time. He's just smooth as fuck. Yeah. Like some players aren't flashy. They don't have crazy mechanics, but it never looks like they need them in the game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree with that point outside of fucking this season. I think Meteos has looked relatively awful.
It's a pretty bad team he's in, to be fair, but yeah, I agree.
I mean, individually, I just feel like it's just been a train wreck for him. Like, there's just mistakes, because he was always smart, right? Like, it felt like he didn't need the mechanics, but now it's like, why are you contesting a crab without prio and just dying for free? Feels like every level 1 he somehow gets fucked. Like, every game that they play, somehow level 1, he's playing Gragas, and it's like, all right, I'm giving like my whole blue side jungle. He's getting 3 camps, going to crab at like 3 minutes, 15 seconds with Predator boots, trying to get a gank off. It fails, they lose the game. Like, I don't know. It seems like just a different Meteos this split, I guess. But I just think that like, from my perspective, there is the capability to look good on a bad team if you at least have like decent, because there's teams that are bad for different reasons, right? If you have like a decent enough early game team where it's like your teammates don't know how to fucking split push or like play 1-3-1, whatever, you can still like be able to show off in the early game. And I feel like Closer has done a decent job of that. So like if I was to say top 4 junglers, like no order, it would be like Blabber.
It'd easily be in there.
Yeah, it would be Blabber, Closer, Santorin, and probably Dardoch, the split. That's what I would have.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So far. So I guess the one player that we haven't talked about that is obviously getting a lot of hype because he's on C9 is Blabber, right? From playing against Blabber, how good is he? Because in games, he looks really good.
Wait a minute. Did you just basically say that Blabber isn't in the top 4?
No, I did.
But did you forget him?
No, he was the first one I said. Yeah. I think like if I had to make a tier list right now, the problem right now is C9 is so dominant. It's kind of like G2 from last split, where if you make a top 4, like a tier list, you have to put you have to put a C9 player number 1. Which one can you say is not number 1?
And also, here's the other problem. It's like C9 finishes games in like 27 minutes. So it's like, we're all aware Blabber has an early good game. That was always his strength. The problem was what happens in a game where he's behind, where like, you know those stats that people reading out, like they never even lose towers. Like they never lose the fucking Herald, they never lose the Dragon, they never lose anything. So I'm sure, by the way, I'm sure he's part of it because he seems to pop off early game like a motherfucker. But my question is this. I'd like to see the same Blabber in a game where when he does that one int that he does at like...
Yeah, no, you lose the game.
...% of every
you lose
game.
The game.
Yeah, exactly. That's the difference. Right now, it doesn't matter. It's just one int. But they're so far ahead. It doesn't matter. If he was on a bad team, like if he was in closest position, that's game over if you do that at that point in time.
The perfect example of that was the C9 game versus TSM, where they took that 2v2. They were playing Kiana into Renekton mid, and then he was playing Elise into Gragas, and they took a 2v2 at Crab. Both died, gave double bumps to the mid laner. How the fuck can you do that as a jungler and get away with it, man? You literally...
I thought the game was over.
Yeah, you're playing Elise number 1, which is like the early game champion. If this champion doesn't do anything early game, you're going to get outscaled by everything. You're playing Elise number 1, and your mid lane is hard counterpicked, right? It's Kiana into Renekton, and then you feed that Renekton 2 kills and double buffs, and you still somehow win the game. Like, that is just a crazy fucking int, but I mean, it just ended up not mattering.
What they need to do is this, right? I'll tell you a very, very quick story, which is when Kobe Bryant was a young player in the NBA, and he got Phil Jackson, the legendary coach of the Bulls, who'd won 6 championships as his coach. What happened was, because as a young player, he wanted to like score as much as he could and show how good a player he was. Phil Jackson told him, like, right, I'll set you up with Michael Jordan. Have a conversation with him because he had a philosophy as to how you carry a game in the NBA, right? And Michael Jordan said, basically, the problem is if you just go ham from the minute the tip-off starts and try and score every point you can, basically at that point, you actually have to be way better than if you score less points because now your team isn't involved. It's just you, and the whole game's on you. And if at any point you slow down, your team's all like they haven't shot the ball. They've just been standing watching you. So what he told him you do is for the first 3 quarters, you just basically take it measured. Like you score a few points in the first quarter, second, you just set people up. And then what you do is you figure out the moment in the 4th quarter where like you need to win the game for your team, and then you take over and you do anything you want to do. But the idea is you measured. But Blabber just needs to have the opposite of that. It's like for the first 10 minutes, go as ham as you want. You're doing a fucking sick job this split so far. You're getting so many players off, so many kills, ganks. But then there has to be like a moment where it's like, now we've got the lead. Like, why risk throwing it at this point? Just be measured at that point. So, like, from the next 10 minutes away, like, obviously I'm doing it ridiculous. You wouldn't have a literal timer like that. But, like, if he could just get that principle of when to be 10% less aggressive, they would, I mean, they haven't lost a game, but they would look totally unbeatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of got sidetracked, but I just wanted to get Santorin's opinion on Blabber since we kind of let into it.
Yeah, go on then. Tell us what you think.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like, I think he does a really, really good job of like playing really aggressive with winning lanes. My only thing is, let's say like they played at Worlds or played in like even EU. When his laners gets matched, that's when like there's really pressure on the jungler. And I do think that he can like carry a lot of those early games because he has really good like gang timings, really good paths and stuff like that. My main concern for Blabber has always been the mid-late game like you guys were talking about, because even like last week with like the Blabber hop or whatever, man, if I did that
that's
like on some of my other teams, I literally instantly lose the game. Like they get like bounties on all the players, like suddenly like they have an in, they can just keep farming, like only because they're so goddamn good. Like it's very hard for them to make mistakes that'll actually lose you the game. For example, the game Dom was talking about, like they lose for next and that kind of game, bro. If that happened on like a mediocre team, that game is just sealed. Like that game is just over. Mm-hmm. But because I feel right now when I think of C9, the 2 best players on that team I think is the bot lane. Because literally, if you watch all their games, they'll always have priority. They'll always get first dragon. They'll swap the herald, get first herald, then get dragon, then herald. Like literally, like they can play fruit ball in every single game, and they just win every single game. Because right now, I think
their meta is strength.
Yeah, like their ball is just really, really good. But I don't want to take anything away from their top side because I still feel like they're doing a lot of really good plays, and that's why if I wanted to do a like tier list on every single role, I'd probably put their C9 player on every single one of them.
Yeah.
I guess number one.
Yeah. I mean, I think the player that's kind of had the worst split on C9 so far is Licorice, you know? But it just doesn't even seem like him having his worst split, you can even put anyone above him, because maybe he'll lose a flash in lane, maybe he'll have like a couple int deaths randomly, maybe he'll set ult the guy, the AD carry that got insect into you out of the fight and kill his whole team. The team's just like so far ahead that it just doesn't matter, and it still feels like Licorice is like good at playing with a team. Like he has a good idea.
I don't know about that evaluation though. Like I'm with you that if you're the worst player on C9, that's still pretty fucking good. That's like being the ugliest girl in the Miss World pageant. It's like you're probably still pretty fucking good looking. But I would just say, like, relative to their teams, like I would definitely say he's got pretty good competition from Hooney, like you said before. Broken Blade.
Broken Blade's been playing really well.
Some of these players are in much more flawed teams, but they're looking fucking good most of the time.
Yeah. And it's got to be triggering for somebody like Broken Blade, because when you're playing the TSM versus C9 game, like he's playing like Akali, like nerfed Akali into set, and he blows the guy's flash 1v1, and it just doesn't matter at all for the game state. Like it's like, okay, I've got my advantage, you know, like I burn the guy's flash, I'm freezing the wave, and then it's like, oh, actually, I'm not even freezing this wave. They're actually just coming to fucking dive me as 3, and I have to give up like the 3 waves that are stacking against me now. And he just like ends up being so far behind that he doesn't even get to play the game. So I feel like for some players,
we have to talk about that, about TSM, because here's the problem, right? On the one hand, I totally get why people didn't panic too much the first like 4 weeks or whatever, because the thing is, when they would lose games, they often had the lead. Sometimes they even actually had like great fucking draft that looked awesome. Sometimes Dardoch was getting the early kills. So basically, it looked like C9 for the first like 8 minutes or something. Like it was looking, that's pretty good. Like, so on the one hand, right, yeah, that's if you can do that even in your bad period, that suggests if you fix things, you'll be one of the absolute best teams. Yeah. But on the other hand, those are also the worst games to lose, is when you actually had all the advantages and you lose them. So you can go either way on that one. So I still feel like jury's still out a little bit for me on TSM. Like they clearly have a good roster. That went without saying. You could see it in the off season. Some things work in the game, but I actually find it really alarming if you throw in this many games when you're in the lead like that. Like a good team closes those games. So like I have concern. I want to know what you guys think of them.
I mean, yeah, go for it.
First,
well, no, I was just gonna set you up for the fact that, like, obviously Santorin played in one of those massive throws. The biggest throw of the season for TSM was the Pantheon Talia game where they played Pantheon jungle with Talia mid. Santorin was playing Lee Sin, and they were down 10k gold, and they had Yuumi Ornn, and they ended up winning the game. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about that game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, just looking at the draft, I feel it's almost unplayable for us because like they should be able to snowball really, really easily. Like MF they can invade level 1, yeah, like MF Yuumi, and we had on 2, which is losing matchup, and like I just feel like it was really hard to play the draft from the get-go. And I feel like they weren't as proactive as like I was basically thinking like if C9 was playing that comp, like man, like we're just at 15 minutes, like the next would explode. But I feel like they're really tunnel, like they have to make this spot play. So like I went red to like my blue buff and like started fighting Dardoch and stuff like that. And after that, it felt like the game plan didn't really change. They're still playing the exact same way, like trying to get control around bot. They could have dove top the entire game. Like just dive top once, get hero, like the game's basically over for us.
That's not the win condition though. Is that the win condition?
You gotta dive bot because that's what we practice, you know? And then after that, when they're playing Talia Pantheon, they're just grouping. They're not playing split push. They're not like doing anything like trying to catch people out. You're literally just 5v5 A-ramming. And we were playing our comp that well. Like we were making a lot of stupid mistakes, and I just felt like, man, like how did we win that game? Like I didn't even feel good about winning that game. I feel like we should just get like absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, you didn't win that game. They lost that game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's the problem because that's what it spells out. It's like I look at their players. I don't really think any player's been that bad. Like I think Cobber's been a little bit underwhelming, but whatever. I didn't think he was going to be that sick anyway. He's just an all right player. But the biggest problem with their team is that something that's been another problem they've had for many years. The shot calling looks whack. Like the fact that you're saying that they couldn't identify halfway through the game how to even win the game. They just kept trying to do what probably the coach said the last second before he went off stage. Like, play around this lane, like, you know, and they just, all right, we'll do that forever.
I feel like that's always been the problem with TSM. When you look at their teams, they look so rigid where it's like they have a game plan, but sometimes like you just have to be a player in the game. Like obviously killing an Ornn a bunch of times shouldn't win you a game in isolation. Like because he's going to be a tank, he's going to be useful no matter what. But there's times where you just have to like take what's given to you. If you see a good opportunity, you should feel like you have the freedom to actually capitalize on that. Like if I see, even if my plan going into the game is like, hey, we have really good bot dive, you play with that mentality, hey, I can look for the bot dive, I can look for the bot dive. If you see something different in the game, you see an opportunity to get ahead and snowball through a different area, you can't just completely disregard it. And I feel like every TSM jungler, that's kind of why they end up looking like so passive at the end of the day, is because it's like hammered into them, you have to play like this is our game plan, you have to play like this style. And like we saw it with Santorin, we saw it with Santorin at the end of his career, his tenure with TSM. We saw it with Mike Young, but Mike Young was just terrible, so it's kind of unfair to really put him in there.
Put it this way, Mike Young wasn't TSM's fault except signing him. Like, you know, he was equally to blame for that one. The other ones I have sympathy for, but he was to blame for that one.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess when you were in TSM, did you feel like you had the freedom to like do things that were outside of like your game plan or whatever?
Definitely to a lesser extent. I feel like on other teams, I've definitely had more freedom. I feel like, if I'm a team right now, like when I go into the game, I'm out of base. I'll be like, okay, this is what path I'm gonna do. Like this is why I'm gonna do it and stuff like that. Whereas like I feel like on TSM, it was kind of given to me beforehand. Like we already knew, like going into like loading screen, we already knew what we were gonna do. You know, like we already had like the first few minutes down. That's not always a bad thing. But I do feel like it's also. I mean,
the first 2 minutes down, like 2 minutes in the game, yeah. Like, look, does Bjergsen's butler just come over like, sir has prepared your path for today? And you're like, Soren is like, you are not to speak to sir. You will read the notes and speak in them. Like, what the fuck's that? Like, you planned the whole thing out.
But because like, it's not all planned out. I'm just saying, like, if I was playing on TSM now, like, obviously I would change the pathing, like, according to what happens in the game. But back then, I just didn't have the experience and knowledge to do stuff like that. So when I played on TSM, it's very hard for me to actually say how good or bad the TSM is playing with jungle, because I didn't feel like I had the capability to actually, like, play the jungle properly, you know? So it's, like, to me, like, Bjerg is really, really good. And I still don't understand why people say like Bjergsen, like laner's dog and stuff like that. It's because he knows exactly when to call for jungle. Like I was around mid because he's saying, yo, if you come mid like now, I'm gonna like solo kill the other guy and I'm gonna get a lead and stuff like that. Like, hey, I've lane frozen. Like if you come right now, like the game is over for mid lane and stuff like that. He was really good at those kind of calls. I feel like when I was on the team, the main issue I had with Bjerg was like how he snowballs to lead to other lanes. You know, like to me, like when I was on the team, he just always got really insane leads himself. And that's why I was always mid, because I feel like he was like my star carrier that's going to carry your game for me. Mm-hmm. But to me, like I feel like over the years, it looks like he's taking more of like a team role where like he's trying to like help his like all the laners as well.
He sacrifices, sure.
Yeah, but back then when I was in TSM, I felt like he was just like, he's going to carry the game or we're going to lose the game, you know? So. Yeah.
So you say that like you don't know why people are like, why is the jungler always Bjergsen's dog? All I'm going to say is this: why don't any of the junglers ever stick around? Like, how many junglers is he going to go through? This is like Leonardo DiCaprio. As far as I can tell, seems like a great guy. Why is every girlfriend that he has 18 years old? Why is he always dumping the other one, getting another 18-year-old? There's something going on there, Leo. There's something with you, homie. It ain't all those girls. They don't just turn 21 and then suddenly become a bitch. Like, you're doing that, Leonardo DiCaprio. So whatever's wrong with you, Bjergsen, Leonardo DiCaprio, great fucking analogy, by the way. Little baby face motherfucker coming in there, way too young. Becoming a star, never won that Oscar Worlds, has it? Whatever, he won it now. Well, there's a difference. Bjergsen's never going to win Worlds, but you know, there's definitely. So here's the thing: I've never gone 100% on that. Like, it's not just Bjergsen's fault or just TSM's, but I do think they just waited way too long to start like acknowledging there was a problem. There was a trend, quite clearly, you know.
I mean, I just
that's true.
You can go forward with your point.
Okay, so to me, like I think the biggest thing I remember is when Svenskeren was in TSM, and he'd always go for these invades. And I was like, this is going to be a great invade for them. Then nobody moves, and he just dies. I'm like,
yes.
What the hell? You know, like that's kind of like where I see, like, that was definitely one of the issues, like, even when I was on the team. But the thing is, like, I never even went for those plays. So, like, how are they going to, like, show if they do it?
I know what you mean, but here's the problem I have with that. There's two angles. One, I always thought actually Svenskeren was the player that proved that they didn't know how to use jungle, because anyone who think, I know now everyone's going to laugh because he's not doing great in like EG, but I think Svenskeren has always been a pretty good jungler. Like in Europe, he was a monster before he went to TSM. So like the difference was in Europe when he would do those sick invades where he used to be like one of the best duelist junglers in the game. He was just tearing games up. It's just, as you said, there was no follow-up. They were like, the fuck's this guy doing? I'm not going in. They're just letting him die. And then the other part is, like, one thing I always wondered is, I know Loco was only there for a couple of years, but I actually think in a way he negatively impacted the way that maybe Bjergsen and some of the others thought about jungle. Because remember, Loco Doko's knowledge base comes from Korea. And in Korea, the jungler is your dog. Like, they tell the jungler what to do. It's one of the reasons why I wasn't that surprised when that Mowgli guy went to Vitality and just did whatever they told him, where they just told him to be like Gilius 2.0 and just gank on level 3 every fucking game. Like,
that's
like that's
a
how
death sentence.
You know what I mean? That's not how you play jungle. But if your coach tells you to do it and you're just obedient, you're going to do it. And then you're going to think we knows best. But in certain cases, this is why I thought them getting Dardoch was the perfect pickup. You want the jungler who eventually is going to say, like, if it's the wrong thing you're calling, like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do the shit that works. Like, there's got to be some pushback.
But if you watch the games, it feels like Dardoch's already becoming like more of the dog player than he was before. Like, he seems like he's more like doing set plays. Like, it's not the same Dardoch that we saw before. You know, Dardoch would always just like get crazy advantages from just like really risky plays, where now it just seems like everything is way more calculated. He's just there like in the 3-man dive timings. You watch the Lee Sin game that he just played on Monday night. I mean, he's literally playing Lee Sin into Sejuani and just like down in CS, not able to do anything.
Yeah, because he's probably got fucking Sith Lord Bjerg in his ear, hasn't he? Like, the TSM is a pathway to many championships, some consider to be unnatural. He's like, how do I learn this power? It's like, not from CLG. It's like, you know, and he just fucking starts convincing you to do shit. The other problem I had is this. Even though, like, you'd think, like I said in that narrative, he'd come in and just do whatever the fuck he wants. The problem is, I almost wish they'd done this move 2 years ago when he had like less of baggage. Because the other problem now is Dardoch also knows there cannot be any problems in this TSM lineup. Otherwise, his career is probably done. Like if this doesn't work out, he's going to be playing in like the Golden Guardians of the world for the rest of his career or academy. Yeah. So he actually has to be on his best behavior. But the problem is you almost want him to be a little bit out of pocket every now and then, right?
Yeah.
Basically, I'm not saying something ridiculous. I don't want to just turn around and slap the fucking taste out of Bjergsen's mouth like, I'm the fucking captain. No, obviously you're not going that ridiculous. But like you're saying, you want him to have a bit more autonomy. Don't be a dog.
Yeah, you want him to be able to take the fights that he thinks he can take. Like if he's like, hey, I can like win, because he's a player that has a lot of confidence. You know, there's certain players that are okay just kind of being along for the ride. Like they're like, I don't care how we win. I just like want to get there at the end of the day. And then there's other types of players that are like, hey, like, if Dardoch says, give me fucking Rengar for a game, just give the motherfucker Rengar and see if he's just going to carry that shit. Like, that's more of what I want to see out of them. But it seems like it's just not that. Like, this season, I think that this is probably the worst, like, professional split I've seen from Dardoch. His Echo Fox days, I thought he was the best jungler in the league. When he was with TL, I thought he was probably, like, the best jungler in the league during that period. The only time where I felt like he was kind of playing like this was the Immortals lineup. That was, like, 7th place, and I think it was 2017.
Yeah, the beginning split, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It feels weird to me watching Dardoch play a lot of these games because it's like, where's the fire? Like, when are you gonna fucking 1v1 or like gank a lane? Because it seems like, yeah, he'll go for like some early game plays, but it's always set plays. It's Bjergsen getting priority and they're rowing top together as 3.
It's like at the moment, Broken Blade is almost inarguably their best player.
Yes.
But if you actually looked at that lineup, the dream is you want Dardoch and Bjergsen to be the best players. Because if they're the best players and then those other names are just the complementary player, then the lineup's straight fire. Like at that point in time, you should probably be the best team in NA.
Mm-hmm. Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I don't know. I don't have much confidence looking at TSM, and I think that the flaw that they've had with Bjergsen is I feel like Bjergsen was such like a specifically good player, and they tried to like make him more well-rounded into everything. It's like, okay,
I hate that as well. Yeah.
So it's like, so you had this insane mechanical beast that was solo killing his lane every single game. Like he was better than most of the Koreans in like season 4, season 5 in terms of just like 1v1 laning. You saw it when he went to Worlds, right? Like even in the game that you guys lost to whatever, I think it was KT or whoever you guys played in groups, he's like 40 CS up and like shitting on Nagne. Like he's really, really popping off in these games. And they tried to be like, okay, well, you're a good mechanical player, but we need you to be more of a leader and like shot caller, and you've got to like make decisions and everything. And I feel like it took away from his strength of just being like the best mechanical player in the league.
I can give you a good analogy here. Like, I don't know, Santorin, do you ever follow CSGO at all?
Yeah, I do.
Like in CSGO, there have been loads of players where they were star players, like they were the carry. Like the French player Shox is a good example. Nico was one of the best players in the world like 2 years ago. And what happens is they were like the carry who just got all the kills in the game. And then either their in-game leader of the team got kicked or left or whatever. And what happened is they tried to become the in-game leader. And in doing so, they literally ruined their own individual games. Like in the case of Nico, he's still pretty good, but he just wasn't the best player anymore. Shox literally became like half as good. It was really depressing because what happens is, this is exactly tying into this topic, is first of all, their strength is they're already amazing at their strength. You don't want to you don't need to get them to change role. You want to keep them at their role, bring someone else in who can do the other thing. be the leader. So you're already taken away from their strength. But then the worst part of it is, because becoming a leader means literally not only playing the game yourself, but thinking about everyone else on the map. It so changes the way you think about the game that sometimes they can't go back. Like people like Shox tried to go back to being the star player and it never worked for them because they literally changed the way they think of the game itself and what they're supposed to be doing. And whereas like what you usually want, the reason I use CSGO as an example, because it's more of an extreme example. If you have a star player in CSGO, sometimes you don't even want him to know some of the stuff you're doing. You just kill the guys, mate. We'll follow up. We'll throw the flash for you. We'll do it all. Take all the thinking you can out of the equation, because that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why Bjergsen became like the joke is, when everyone used to tell me he's way better than Froggen, right? When Froggen was on Alliance and Bjergsen was on TSM, the difference was the contrast was pretty good back then. Bjergsen would have all these fucking Z games and Fizz, and Froggen was just the control mages. Bjergsen basically just is another version of Froggen now. He just plays all the control mages himself and sits in the lane and farms up. And part of that's because if my job is also to shot call the game, never lose lane, because I need to make sure that I can take care of everyone, like, I'm going to just play control mage. It's the most obvious, safe way to do it. I'm just going to play Orianna every time it's available. Like, I agree. I think they took away a dimension of that guy. That's actually sad.
And I think
he could pop off like a motherfucker these last couple of years with these champion pools available.
Yeah, and a lot of it I feel is like kind of like unlucky for them that they kept on getting these people that were trying to, like, they tried that approach, right? They got Yellowstar, and Yellowstar was supposed to be the legendary shot caller from Fnatic season 5.
I don't blame them who they picked up. Yeah. They picked up the right names.
Mithy right after.
Shot callers of all time. Yeah.
But then it turns out it's like, are these guys, like, how good were these shot callers? Or like I don't know, like for Mithy, it's like he definitely earned the respect where he was most likely an insane shot caller, great mind for the game. Every single person that's played with him, when we talked to Perks on this show, he still had respect. He said that he learned so much from the game from Mithy. But like, how good was Yellowstar actually at this point? Or like, how well did Mithy perform in the context of TSM? Like, it's really hard to judge like if they're really like on their A game. And I feel like because of their incompetence, because of the failure that they shared in those seasons, it made Bjergsen feel like he just needs to do everything. It's like, oh, well, people can't fucking cover for me. Like, I can't take a backseat and let this guy shot call. These people don't even know what the fuck they're doing in the game. So I don't know. I feel like because of the experiences that he had, it kind of shaped him into like this player that he is now. Where, I mean, he's still good. I don't think that anyone looks at Bjergsen in the LCS and is like, he's a bad mid laner. Like, he is definitely like top half of the league easily, right? Like,
put it this way, I've literally told him this privately as well, years ago. I told him this. Don't mistake being a leader, as in a leadership figure, with meaning you have to be the shot caller. Those don't have to be the same thing. Like I said, in your team, the way you can lead, mate, is be the best mid laner in the region. That's leading by example, and then you're going to give so much confidence to your players around you. But let someone else do the shot calling. And the concept is, if it's like, yeah, but at the moment no one else can, then tell TSM to get someone. It's not like you're in fucking Echo Fox or whatever. You're in the best team in theory. They can go and get you someone. I mean, they did in these cases. It just didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they should take a really smart jungler, if anything, because I feel like when I play with Bjerg, like he'd always win lane anyway. So like to me, like if you got Xmilly, like let's say 2015 even, like I think that would be really beast lineup, because like Xmilly would know exactly what to do with his lead. Like he'd probably just tell him, yo, Bjerg, let's go down here. Like we're gonna do this and that. When I was on the team, I kind of wish I could do that kind of thing, because it kind of felt like got a lead, that's it, that's where we go, you know. Like and I also remember back in 2015. Bjerg was kind of frustrated that he was kind of getting pushed towards being the shot caller on the team, just because, like, I mean, I was too inexperienced, other people were too inexperienced. So it just felt like it must feel really bad for him too, like kind of being like, should I like keep playing my own way and just keep losing games, or should I like try something different? And
by the way, I know you didn't in any way mean it like that, but that sounds like mad shots fired at Dardoch. Like, I think what TSM needs is just like a smart jungler. Dardoch's like, the fuck?
I meant like, no,
I know what you mean, like a really, yeah, of course.
Yeah, like before Bjerg started changing. I'm just like back in 2015. Like,
right, okay.
That yeah, like sense. Not now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the thing that TSM's always had is they're like, oh, well, our goal is to win Worlds. And like, can you really win Worlds with like Smithy on your lineup? Can you really win Worlds with a Meteos on your lineup? Like, he's just going to get outperformed like later on. And the reality of the situation is like, all right, like fucking baby steps, motherfucker. Like, try to get back to winning NA, and then we can talk about like trying to win Worlds later on. So, yeah, I mean, it just seems like their mentality is like all over the place. Like, I think they need to kind of like break it down, go back to like, you know, square one and rebuild, because it feels like every other time they're just like they're trying to accomplish some goal that is so far away that they're not actually like able to deal with the now. It's like you need to like there's building blocks with the team. Like you have to like understand how to play like
here's a
ball
crazy
comps
idea.
and then 1-3-1 and stuff like that.
This is going to sound like a joke, but like rather than try and win worlds, try and just be able to play the mid game or split push, simple concepts that we get. Because the reason why I say that as a joke is, on the one hand, it's funny, but it's actually true as well. Like one of the stupidest things ever is, I once remember, I can't remember who it is who said this, but some like legendary athlete said, I never ever thought about winning because my philosophy was, if I'm just trying to improve all the time and always make the correct decisions, winning will be a byproduct of that. Like if you play the most perfectly in a game, you make the least mistakes, you improve every area you can, you play your top, you'll just win. Like you don't, the idea of like just trying to win, well, I mean, technically you could win and just fluke it and just barely be that good, couldn't you? So like, I actually do think that was basically one of the flaws that TSM had, because the mentality always was, it's why Reginald came in as the coach, like in the playoffs so many times in the summer, because his logic was like, we can't lose this split. And it's like, I always said this, losing some of those splits could have really helped them. I mean, think about the split they lost to Santorin here in the summer. That's why they made the super team lineup afterwards. That actually was a positive. If they'd have won that split, like if you guys had have fluked it and beaten CLG,
I would have went to Worlds.
The same lineup,
but that's okay.
He would have actually.
Yeah.
That would have actually. That could have been worse for TSM in the long run. They would keep some of those players. Maybe Lost Boy stays another year. Like sometimes the right loss can actually help you.
Yeah, sure.
It's a wake up call.
Yeah. I agree. So, I mean, I guess I know you have to go soon because you have scrims at 12, right? Scrims at 12 and you need to eat, but...
la-di-da, right? Well, let's hope this time, unlike last year's spring split, you don't just let that nice big lead just fade off as all the other teams learn how to play the game. I know you guys have just all been huddled together like some 80s movie, like we're all the misfits. No one wants us to succeed. And you're like, let's do it together. Screw these guys. But now TSM's powering up. Team Liquid's coming... Well, sort of coming back.
Oh, no. Team Liquid is trash, dude. Team Liquid is fucking... They fucking suck.
But the point is, close strong, Santorin. Listen, we learned that mistake from TSM. You need to close strong. Yeah. That's what you got to do.
So, I mean, I guess I just normally open it up to the guests. Like, is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Like, any topics that you have, like a final topic for you, like on the show? Is there anything that you hear in the community or any like misconceptions about your team, etc.? Like, is there anything you want to discuss?
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if there's anything like I'm really wanting to discuss because I feel like...
Do you think Dominate was a better jungler than you when the two of you played in 2015?
I would say so. I think he's way more experienced. He's like way better as a whole. I feel like, to me, I didn't...
He's only saying it because I'm here. He's only saying it because I'm here.
No, I'm not.
I thought you were pretty underrated at the time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like... Because I feel, look at it as a whole, as a jungler, like I didn't feel like I brought much to the team outside of just like being good mechanically, like doing plays and stuff like that. Whereas like I feel like Dom was doing so much more for the team. Like he's like even like the main shot caller and stuff like that. I wasn't even close to being anything like that. So if we were to swap roles, like I don't think Team Liquid would have looked as strong either, So that's why, like, to me, I would say he was a better jungler than me back then.
Damn, crazy.
There you go.
Crazy. Well, you're definitely a better jungler than me now. So I'll say that.
Right.
So
you won the long game.
Yeah, he played the long con. No, so yeah, I guess. So I guess the one thing that I wanted to ask you about a little bit, I just thought about was that H2K lineup that you're in with Larson. What ended you said something positive about me, so now I'm just gonna bring you to your lowest fucking point. So that H2K lineup, I was just thinking about it because Veteran was your coach at the time. I know you guys weren't the best of friends, but like, how do you think that it was like going from like being at that point and like having. Like, how did you make your decision to like actually be able to keep on playing? Because I remember talking to you privately, and you felt like you were really good, but you felt like you were ELO held by your team, and then you're kind of scapegoated by H2K. What was like the turning point that made you like want to push through? Because I feel like that must have been the most difficult time of your career.
So honestly, I had decided I had thought about like even switching all the games. Like I was even thinking about like Fortnite. And stuff
yeah, I remember we would fucking play Fortnite back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, like I just after like thinking about it for a long time, like damn, I've put too many eggs into the basket in League of Legends. I feel like I'm actually like really good at the game now. I have a lot of things that I can bring to the table that I couldn't back on TSM. Yeah, K-Drill. And honestly, I was just really grateful when I got a different opportunity because I just wanted like last time, like I'm gonna try one last time. If it doesn't work, I'm probably gonna quit. Because I really felt like because back on TSM, I had so many things that I wanted to improve on, and I felt like these are the reasons why I wasn't good enough. So I was like going through the list, like getting better at this, getting better early game, getting better shot calling, like all these different aspects of the game. And I feel like I'd finally hit a point where I'm a good player. And being on bad teams, like that's kind of a byproduct of all the teams I've been on in the past. Like it's very hard to look good as a jungler when your teams are really sucking. So I just want to give it a final shot, and I got my opportunity with FlyQuest, and luckily it went well.
Yeah, no.
Do you know the sad thing that people don't know though, Dom? Is like I know even though that team once they made the player changes did like do that little mad run where they made the playoffs or some
Selfie
bullshit.
one, yeah, that was
Like,
the big one. It was Selfie coming in. Like Lars,
The craziest thing,
Kadriel was so bad mid lane. Like that was the one
he
thing.
swapped to jungle.
Yeah, so
exactly.
Kadriel swapped. I don't know why I keep on saying Larson, but Kadriel swapped to jungle. I remember a play specifically where I lost my mind, where Santorin goes to gank mid, and Kadriel's playing Malzahar, and he flashes. And he cancels his own R. So he flashes and R's him as Malzahar. He starts the Nethergrasp and then uses his E right after and cancels it. I'm like, how the fuck do you jungle for this guy? Like, how are you supposed to play jungle in this game? How could you ever get criticism in this situation?
Yeah, I think the one thing people forget is when I played the first 6 games, that was when Traggers Knife was still a thing, the ward item, the jungle ward item. The second I was benched or kicked off the roster, it was removed. So the first 6 games, like if you're losing lanes and enemy jungle does the very classic path, do your camp space, get ward item, put wards in the enemy jungle, then it's very hard to play jungle because like they have vision everywhere. And the second I left, they removed that. And I feel like if I was in that team after they removed that item, we would probably look better because even in scrims when I was put on carry junglers, I was actually doing really, really well. Like there's a lot of junglers that like were telling me like, damn, you're actually doing well in this like shit lineup and stuff like that. And I was just like really disappointed that I didn't get to like try my best like once that was removed from the game.
Do you ever see yourself playing in EU again?
Honestly, I'm not sure because I like it's not like I expect that up. It's like the way I was in H2K, that's always not how it is in like good teams. Potentially I would, but I do feel like I have so many friends and like relationships in America now that like I feel like it's more like the home of playing in LCS here over LEC. But I mean, I'm gonna go wherever I feel like I'm gonna get the most success. So yeah, I could see myself going to LEC.
The weirdest thing though about that particular H2K lineup is obviously like it was a few different steps, but that's basically how Kadriel became a proper jungler now, and he actually is a pretty legit jungler. Like anytime I watch him play, I always forget like fuck hell, this guy was a mid laner and he was a bad mid laner at that. Like he's a way better jungler. Actually suits his style for some reason because he is a pretty cerebral guy, you know.
No,
and sadly, I do feel like the sad thing about that H2K lineup you were a part of is like almost every player in that lineup, it was underrated. Like I know Sheriff obviously had hype. He's now Patrick because obviously he was like a young talent. But like everyone else had all these things. It's just they never showed in the games. Like it's not a meme. Promiscu really is like a fucking scrim god. It's just he never did it on fucking stage. Smitty J, people laugh at, but he actually has some qualities in the top lane. He could be pretty decent. He knew what he was doing in the game sometimes. Obviously, like you didn't have him, but Selfie was good when he joined. Like the real problem is like, yeah, you had no jungle mid synergy whatsoever in Europe of all fucking places. Like good luck winning in Europe with no jungle mid synergy and the worst mid. It's just game over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to touch on. We touched on H2K, we touched on FlyQuest, we touched on a bunch of stuff. Oh, one of the things that I've always known about you that I find interesting, like this is just not even this isn't even really like a question or anything, it's more just a story, is like your background, right? Like so when you came into League, like you were originally like a soccer player, right? And you were really fucking good. Like you were borderline like trying to play professional. I think you were like signed to like a club or something.
I mean, he is from Denmark, I will just say, Dom. So you have to understand, the Danish league is like fucking like whatever like the Vietnam league is in CS. You know, I'm just saying, it's not like the English Premier League. You know, I'm just saying like.
I wasn't that good at football or like soccer. Like I was good at it, but it's not like I was like, I don't think I got signed anywhere. Like I wasn't that good. My main thing was, it's kind of the same story as Reckless, where I got knee injuries, and then all the time I put into soccer and like running and like all these exercising stuff, I just put straight into League of Legends. Suddenly I was like, wow, I'm actually getting really good at this game. Like who would have thought putting more time into League of Legends that changes every 2 weeks, like that's gonna make you a better player. So suddenly I started like seeing myself becoming a really good player, and luckily in Denmark the healthcare system is really, really amazing. It's like basically like I could just take a gap year whenever and I could come back later. And the bonus, when you're above 18 in high school, you get paid to go to school. So
that's true.
So when I was 17, I'm like, okay, I can just go to the United States. I'm going to like see how it is. Worst case, it's just good experience. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get paid to go to school. So like, to me, it's like, I think that's why there's so many Danish pros as well, because the system just makes you have a chance to like do what you want to do in life. And I feel like that's probably why we see so many.
Yeah, I mean,
it's also one of the reasons, if people don't know, by the way, why Scandinavia as a whole, because obviously it was Sweden in the first 10 years of esports, it was like the dominant force. The real reason why is because, for example, like university was free, so anyone who can get the grades went to university, and then when you went to university, you had the best internet connections in the world. So that's like how the whole esports scene even started over there. Whereas like if you compare that to like USA or UK, it's a joke in comparison. No, the thing is, from that story, though, I've realized, I'll just add that to my list of things. If I ever get a time machine, one of the first things I'll do is I'll go back in time, like, let's say roughly, like, I'm going to have to guess, like, I'm going to say probably like 16, 17 years at this point in time, to like a really weird, like very low-level regional Swedish game, soccer game, and I'll run onto the field just as someone's about to tackle Reckless, be like, Martin, get down! And I'll, like a bodyguard, and then I'll save him from getting tackled, and then he'll just go on to become a low-level Swedish soccer player instead of really carrying Europe. So problem solved. Yeah. See, on the one hand, I'm going to do something good, but for evil reasons. You have to understand.
The reckless flame always coming in.
It's like I have some mad theories. It's like when there was, because Richard does when I do that By the Numbers podcast in CSGO, Richard's been editing together like highlight packages of the funniest moments, and I was watching one of them the other day when I was chemically enlightened, whatever you want to say, Dom. I don't know. I used TOS on fucking Twitch. I think people get what I was implying there. Yeah. And when I was watching one, there was a mad moment because there was one where I made a joke and I said that, like, people always say some stupid shit, like if they ever got a time machine, they always pick something outlandish, don't they? Like, I'd go and I'd stop Hitler or something, something ridiculous. My joke was I'd go back in time to Dealey Plaza and I'd shoot John F. Kennedy, because the joke is then everyone else, like the CIA and the fucking, I don't know, Russians or whatever, the Cubans, whoever it was who did kill him would be like, what the fuck, who shot him first? Like, who did that? And then I'd just sneak away down like a fucking drain pipe or something. So, it's a weird use of a time machine, I won't lie, but it's unique. No one else thought that angle up, did they?
I don't think anyone else has ever said
kill
that.
JFK. Number 2, stop Reckless becoming a pro player by saving his injury in football. I don't even know number 3.
I mean, you truly are a historian, because if you had a time machine...
Maybe number 3. Are you ready? Number 3, go back in time to about the end of 2017 and just tell Reginald, I'd watch that double lift. I don't give a fuck, man. Right, that's the end of this segment anyway. Yeah. So.
But I know you have a hard cutoff. I talked to FlyQuest to get Santorin on, and they said 11:45 hard cutoff. He's got to eat, and he's got scrims at 12. So it's nice having you on the show. Thor and I are probably going to go into one topic. Maybe not the most riot friendly topic to talk with the pro players. So I think it's a good. Yeah. Time for you to exit here, but do you have anything you want to shout out, like any, like your Twitter, anything? I know we have it on the screen, but is there anything you would like to shout out before you go?
Just hope you guys support us as a team, and we're gonna try to go as green as possible.
Nice. All right, go green as possible. All right, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. See ya.
GG.
All right, let's see. All right, let's see if I can. Let's see how this is working. Okay, I'm gonna try to resize the cameras. Okay. This is gonna be cut for the YouTube video, but for this, I can just do it live on stream.
I'm guessing, based on what you just said there, we are just literally going to talk about that ridiculous news that just came up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. That has to be it.
Oh, it's amazing, wasn't it? It's just amazing.
It's just too ironic. This is going to be the hardest camera switch of all time, by the way. I'm just doing this live on fucking stream, but you know what? Here we go, like this. Chat's going to flame me, but it's all good. I'm actually getting better at this. This is the practice coming in. Chat, I swear to God, if you guys flame me for this is the content for you guys. You know what? Good enough. We're taking it. We're taking it. All right. So I guess the one thing that we wanted to talk about is the ridiculous news that just came out from Riot regarding their sexual harassment lawsuit that we were. That we've heard about for a while. I thought it was so ironic. I mean, obviously, Mark Merrill and I got into some beef. I know you messaged me back when I was in Europe when that beef started, where I got called out for it. Pretty much, Mark Merrill tweeted out, "Never stop being a good person because of bad people." And this is right after they apparently settled the $10 million lawsuit, the sexism lawsuit that happened. So the new news is that they allegedly paid off the lawyers to get a better deal, get less of a, I don't even know what to call it. They essentially paid off the lawyers to settle for something much lower than
the case.
Yeah,
basically,
to settle for something that was that was much lower than what the women are most likely entitled to. And I thought it was so ironic because they're supposed to be good people because of they should be good people. They should never stop doing good because of bad.
As a general rule, guys who are more inexperienced in life, maybe there's some like young 17-year-olds in the chat or something, right? If someone has to keep telling you over and over again that they're a good person, probably not a good person. Like, good people don't generally do that. Like, they just live their life and it's self-evident that they are good. Like, the idea of Mark Merrill of all people is going to say, like, how many times this motherfucker put his foot in his mouth? Like, his favorite sandwich filling is fucking Nike, like, I don't know, whatever, Jordans or something. Like, this guy's ridiculous. Because think about it, right? One of the things, you know this from way back in the day with Riot, the saddest thing about the way the community reacts to Riot is because since they do literally own the game, they're the gods of League of Legends because they own the IP. There is no way that you can think, right, well, fuck Riot, but wait a minute, I have to still be in the scene. So you have to somehow rationalize why it's okay for them to stick around. And the real reason is they just own the game. That's it. So even if they are the most fucked up parent imaginable, we have no choice. We're stuck with them. So I feel like people by default give them like a benefit of the doubt. That is nuts. Because what people have always done with Riot is every time they fuck up, fans just say, oh, well, I'm sure it was like in the past and that it's changed now and that was other people and it's new people in Riot, so it's a different company now. Except they say that every 2 years, Dom. It doesn't matter what they do. Think of the timeline of this. So some of the sexual harassment supposedly was going right back to the beginning. So maybe some of that was 4 or 5 years ago. I heard some of it was even like a couple of years ago. But let's say it was 6 years ago. So it's changed, Thorin. Now they've got new people. No, sorry, because in the meantime, when the sexual harassment campaign was brought forwards, as accusations, we found out that they also had it built into like the contracts or something that they'd gotten all these people to go into forced arbitration. The whole benefit of which is the documents don't have to become public. So you don't have to have the Voldemort, Richard Lewis's of the world going through all those documents and showing the world what you actually did and what the testimonies are. You just get to hear vaguely some sort of sexual harassment claim and then you never get to know the details. So they already did a semi-scumbag move there, which you, again, if you were good people, you wouldn't need to do.
Yeah, where's the transparency?
Wasn't me. Yeah, exactly. It was the other guy. You know what? We'll pursue him to the full lengths of the law, but we're committed to a new thing. Now, literally now in 2020, we find out that on top of sexually harassing the women, allegedly, and then basically forcing them to go into a system where they wouldn't get like their stories told, you then were trying to literally collude with their legal representatives, allegedly, to rig the case against them so that they can get less money for the sexual harassment you're claiming you didn't do. That was other people in your company who were the bad people. Now, here's one pretty simple equation there that I've just been doing in my mind. That does not mean you are a good person. That means you are objectively a bad person on all scales and across, like, now talking maybe even a 10-year time span.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was really surprised by this coming out because I felt like, okay, they got their shit busted already. You know, as soon as you're already, like, painted as sexist, etc., I feel like then you can actually reform to some degree because you have the opportunity. It's like, all right, the cat's out of the bag. We had this bullshit. Let's actually try to make sure. Let's try to make sure that it doesn't fucking happen again. And instead, they're doubling down on it, paying off the lawyers in private, and it's just like, it's okay, dude. We get it. You guys fucked up. Now you're hiding the cover up, and now that shit comes up. It's like, did they not see this happening? If the sexism that was within their company somehow was brought to light, how is this not going to get brought to light? Where you're paying off lawyers when you're in the middle of a lawsuit, like the people that you're arguing against are literally there contributing to it. So in what world is this going to be like the play where it absolves you of all guilt? It essentially just makes you look worse when it eventually comes out. And I was just really surprised about the number. Like they settled for $10 million originally. So they're saying that the settlement could be up to $400 million worth of damages. And I was just thinking, what the fuck do you have to do to a woman for $400 million worth of damage? Like, Jesus Christ, dude, you must have been doing some fuck shit in Riot.
Well, that's because people forget this, but I'll just say it because it was what was reported. Within the allegations, everyone remembers the funny ones that were actually mildly lighthearted, like you flick someone's balls.
Yeah, farting in somebody's face.
Like those ones just sound like an obnoxious guy in the office, right? No matter what his sex or your sex or gender is. Like, that'd be obnoxious if it was a man on a man. But the problem is, people forget, some of the women alleged they were raped. Like, I believe that was actually one thing that was claimed by some people. So, as you're saying, if the number's that high, it's starting to sound like it's in that ballpark. Like, that's really alarming.
Yeah,
and that's also why it's so dumb they'd ever risk this coming out. Like, you actually had gotten away with some of that shit, Riot, you stupid fucks. People thought you just farted in people's faces. But you had to double down, and from doubling down, now more stuff's going to come out. And also, think about how fucked that is, by the way, just morally. Forget even, like, professional ethics of a company. These were your employees, but just morally as a human being. Right? If you're someone who's in a court case and your lawyer tells you they're offering 10 million, let's settle. Like, he's the expert. You're just going to trust whatever he says, right? You don't know shit about what the value should be. You're not going to go, actually, lawyer guy, I think we're going to go for 100 million. Like, you're not going to know. So you're trusting that person to be able to, so you've betrayed those people a third time. Like, that's so fucked up morally. Come on. Yeah. You are not good people if you do that. And that comes from the top, by the way. Here's another thing all American companies love to do is what you do is you look at your hierarchy and you go, right, who's like vaguely high up that he could kick the can for this, but then we could claim like it only went as high as him and everyone above him knew nothing. Yeah. It is impossible with the scope of what's happened in this whole case from beginning to end that the top people had zero to do with it. It just can't be.
And there was Barry Hawkins was somebody who was supposed to be decently high up in Riot, and he actually had like a really good summarization of this. He wrote like a whole, I guess, like article or a piece. Well, I don't know what you want to call it. He essentially wrote about this whole situation, and he describes in his article or in the body of work that he wrote that he had conversations with Mark Merrill and Brandon Beck about some of the things that were in there, like that were actually baked in to what their values as a company were. So like when they were doing speeches, they had like lighthearted, like borderline rape jokes in the things that they said. So one of them famously was that they said no does not always really mean no, right?
Yes.
So that was the quote. No doesn't always mean no. Which is like, I get like, you can say that with like your boys if like everyone's on the same table, but saying that to like a company of 150 plus people like in person like that or at a meeting, I feel like that's so absurd. Like the no doesn't always mean no. It's like, you don't know what the people there have been through. Like there might have been women there that like, if you look at like the statistics of how many people get raped, there's a good chance that somebody has had some form of sexual assault, and that's probably just really, really demoralizing and doesn't sit well with them. So just like not even wanting to.
The problem I had is like, think about this, right? You know that famous meme that Reddit still says to this day where it's like, just a small startup company. It's like, if you are a small startup company where you start with nothing and people are even contributing their hours and not making much money, you do want it to be like a super close-knit thing of like jokes and fun and lighthearted. Like basically you wouldn't mind it being a frat environment at that point in time. But the idea that you still do that when it's like thousands of people as employees, including women, etc., obviously wouldn't be in a frat because that's not even the situation they'd ever have encountered. Like that is going to be obviously inappropriate, isn't it? Like you've got to be professional in that setting.
Yeah, and then even when confronted about that situation, it's like, hey, maybe let's take the rape jokes out of like our rhetoric. Nope, they double down.
Like, hey man, listen, square. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, they're like, dude, like that. Yeah, no, that was actually what this guy says in his article, man. If you read it, and I don't think he has any reason to lie because he has a stable job. He was easily higher up. He seems like well respected within esports. So the fact that he confronted them and their immediate response is like, hey man, like you should just be more of a bro. Like obviously we don't mean it like that. Like we're not like, we don't think that rape is funny or whatever. You just need to be like more lighthearted. And for them to not even sympathize when confronted is just like, okay, so you guys are just fucking doomed at this point because you're unwilling to change even when confronted. You have these cases that are made public and then you double down again. It just seems like this is just going to be doomed until they change some type of their like upper management. Like I don't see this company with the same people heading it ever making any progress because they're so focused on the fact that they have to be right with their perception. Like they think that they're good people. They believe that what they're doing is correct. So nothing that anyone else says, no matter if it's a court case, no matter if they're confronted directly, none of it will ever change their perception. So, I mean, it just seems like it's just doomed in this.
Here's the funny thing, right? This might sound like a mental analogy, but I'm going to give it because if anyone knows the reference I'm making, it's totally apt, right? One of the really crazy things politically that happened the last few years where people just like, it's sad because it's not even like real life stuff. It's just people on Twitter, basically. When people were like divided into like, I'm right wing and I'm left wing or whatever, like, and obviously all the left wing people have got a lot of the press because they've been kind of nuts in terms of how they behaved. It was famous, right? That it would be the same person who online would say, I'm a really left-wing male feminists who supports women's rights and really respect women, they would always be the ones who got outed as like the actual rapists or like alleged that they had, you know. And the reason why that isn't as counterintuitive as it sounds, because you think, well, that's weird. Why would the guy who says don't rape or like I support women be the one who'd then be abusing them? Surely that'd be the guy who just openly says like, you know, fuck women, they're inferior, whatever. Like you'd think it'd be that guy, right? The reason why it actually makes sense and isn't as counterintuitive as it sounds is because the whole reason why that guy actually then thinks and goes around saying, oh, men are just trash, but I'm like the good guy, is because since they know inside they're like that, but they imagine they're a good guy, they genuinely think, well, if I'm a good guy and I have fucked up thoughts like that, then this guy, who I don't, you know, I'm going to judge as like a stupid frat boy, he must be even worse. He must actually be raping women. So even though I'm bad, like I'm not as bad as him. Like I think that literally from the beginning of the company has been Riot's mentality. Because I always used to say, like, not all of this came out, but a little bit leaked out. People probably heard what happened to the infamous Riot Light, who designed the entire like toxicity system and how you got punished. Where basically, I'll just say, some of it never came out. As a person, what a fuck up! Like none of us who've ever been in any of these chats, we're considered bad boys, Dom. We've never done anything like this motherfucker did in his real life, provably. Like I've seen photos of some of this shit. So like. The idea that guy was the one going and telling everyone else, you're all toxic, and you know what? You're all bad people, and you have to reform. It's like you basically were talking to yourself, mate. Like, there's a famous saying that says a thief thinks everyone steals. Someone who's a scumbag can still think they're a good person, but that everyone else is just worse. What idiots like Riot don't realize is some of us who are just saying mean jokes on the internet, we're not doing any of that shit, mate. Like, we actually are better people than you. We just don't have to advertise some fake like version where it's like, oh no, I'm so holier than that. It's like, you're not holier than anyone. Look at the shit you've done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think that that's always been something that's so, and I feel like League of Legends just viewer base eats that up. Is like, there are worse things in the world than being frustrated and talking shit in a video game. Of course. Like
I've always said this, the most fucked thing about League of Legends when I came in, because I was outside of it. I wasn't there for the first 2 or 3 years. I didn't play the game. It's not even my type of game. I wasn't even a Dota fan, to be fair. Yeah. Like when I came in, I remember saying to the people I knew who got me into the game, like, so wait a minute, people are more bothered about what you type in text that you can turn off than what you actually do in the game itself. Like it's less toxic to fuck with a guy once and like, you know, like when you lose in a game and you tell the guy like, well, you try, and then they purposely flash on the fountain or something. Like that isn't like the most blatant talk, but to me that's 10 times worse than typing anything. I don't get what you type in.
Yeah, no, I mean I've dealt that whole situation, the right,
like they made that whole culture. It was so whack, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that's not how video games used to be. Like video games, when I used to play, like early games of Dota, etc., it was kind of just like you say whatever you want. Like no one really cares. I mean, it's just words. But
you still play. You just learn to live in the flame. That's what we do in Europe in League of Legends. Like the joke was this.
So it's okay.
Like I actually also do think, by the way, that was a very cynical move that they calculated. Because I've always said this, right? Since there was no voice chat in League back then, there barely is now, but in theory there is now.
There isn't voice chat. There's voice chat with your own duo.
For the party, exactly.
It's bullshit.
But since basically it's just text, right? Think about how cheap it is in terms of man hours. In fact, in the early days, there was a tribunal. It wasn't even anyone from your company. It's so much quicker to just get a bunch of logs sent to you, look through the logs, did anyone say a naughty word, and ban that person, than it is to actually have to look at what they did in the game. Because you have to look at the replay, which jokes on them, there wasn't any replays back then. Or you have to go into the server as an admin. That's going to be way more time consuming because you have to actually do your fucking job at that point in time. If you're just spanking little kids at kindergarten for saying naughty words, anyone could do that. So they made that their entire thing. That was supposed to stop toxicity. I don't know how, because I've always told people the reason in League I've never had a toxicity problem is just I'm older, so I'm more wily. Like I told you, I would just insult people sarcastically. Like I just tell the fucker who's feeding what a great job he's doing and how I'm really enjoying playing with him. He's definitely not throwing this entire game, and I hope he stays alive for as long as possible. And be really careful on the stairs when he goes down. You can't ban someone for that. That is perfectly legit, but it's the most toxic shit you'll ever hear, if you know what I'm saying. Like I'm basically telling him to kill himself. I don't like it. I mean, essentially, but in a polite way, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always been the problem with League. I mean, I've obviously been super partial to it. I feel like I was kind of the poster boy of toxicity. Like when they did their first round of bans, I was the most like well-established player that was banned, right? Like there was no other player that went to Worlds that got the ban that I did. So I've always been kind of against it, but just even like personally, like I know Light's exes. And I just know like the type of person that he was. So I think it's so ironic that this guy ends up being Riot is the company that their whole thing is, oh yeah, we try to be really open. They're supposed to be really transparent, and then they have this whole thing with sexism come out. Oh, they're supposed to be really anti-toxicity. Look at who we hired. Like, this guy is like the fucking Jesus of like being a nice guy. Like, and then he just ends up being a toxic piece of shit. It's just so ironic every time. It's just like, we're all fucking humans here. Everyone has like some type of flaws. Just don't try to make it so Riot is so much above everyone else, because it just backfires in your face. So that's like the only thing that I want to say for them.
And also, I would just say again, obviously, you can have a scenario where there are rogue elements within a company that do whatever they want, that don't represent you as a company, and they fuck up and you have to punish them. But the problem is, the way you know that isn't what happened with Riot is in all these areas we're talking about. You can see like a sustained pattern of this stuff happening. Like, it's not like you fire this one guy and it fixes the problem. Because the problem I always thought with that logic is like, yeah, but they fired some of those people for it. It's like, yeah, but who did the hiring of the next guy? Because if the problem was already inherent within the company and you hire someone else who's like a bro like that, you're just going to get the same thing over and over again. So put it this way, after this news especially, it has been far from proven to my satisfaction that Riot actually has changed. I think what happened was they just got caught, they got punished, and they have to pretend they changed, you know?
Yeah. No, I don't believe they changed at all either. So, I mean, it is what it is. I guess we'll have to see how this case settles out, but I can't imagine this being good news for Riot. You know, I can't imagine it being like, no, they actually weren't, like, they actually didn't do anything wrong. They didn't pay any lawyers, etc., and they only actually owe $10 million. I assume it's going to be worse news coming from here. And, you know, I think that it kind of serves them right based on just, like, how they've treated everyone, like, as people. I mean, since the beginning, Riot's been the whole we're better than everyone else mentality, even when it came to like the way that they did their pro circuit, etc. It's like, no, we want full control. Like, we know better than like all these other people that have been in the industry for so long. And it's starting to just blow up in their face like little by little. So I guess as somebody who...
the thought of them having to pay like $100 million is fucking perfect. Like, that's like that shit where one of the things people hated about Game of Thrones, spoiler, was that like a lot of the characters that you wanted to see get like their comeuppance didn't get it. Like Cersei Lannister's an obvious example, right? It's just garbage the way she died. If you watch the series, part of it was like, right, let's see what she's going to get hers in the end, you know. It's like the idea that Riot has been the fucking Cersei Lannister of esports, then they're going to get theirs and have to pay some mad amount. Like, good. Fuck them.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. So I guess that's where we'll end the show here. We got both of our takes on the new Riot news that obviously was super popular on the subreddit. That was a Riot hate thread with, you know, like I think like 6,000 upvotes or something. So yeah, our takes are pretty similar to what everyone else is thinking. I mean, it's the type of situation where it's like, yeah, man, like you just got caught fucking up for like the third time in the row in the same subject. So yeah, I think that's going to conclude our show today. I mean, it was good. We had Santorin on. We got to talk about NALCS. I think we'll probably do EU next week. We'll try to figure out a good guest for that. So until next time, thank you guys for watching. And yeah, we'll see you on the next Crackdown. Peace.